agricultural industry in South Africa. But first things first, here's a story to talk about. So Stats SA has released its mid-year population estimates report for 2025. Now, amongst other things, right, this is the important point. The report revealed, firstly, that demographically, all of the country's population groups are growing, in fact. But the white group, well, they're not growing. That's the first thing, right? With that in mind, let's then talk about where is this white grouping? Because the numbers are interesting. It talks about 500,000 white South Africans who have left the country in the last 2 decades. So with me is Solly Molaye, the acting DDG responsible for population and social statistics at Stats SA. Solly, I appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. So let me start with this. First of all, the numbers, the 500,000 white South Africans who have left this country in the last 20 years. Is that a number large enough to be concerned about when you divide it into 20 years? It's 25,000 people per year.
Thank you so much. So we released what we call it a mid-year population estimate. So in between censuses, we really need to understand how the population is growing and what are some of the population dynamics that we need to take into account. And we do have a model that is a demographic model that we are using to have a better sense of how the population is growing, using the administrative data sources to look at the number of deaths in a particular year and also the number of deaths. And then we do what we call it a net migration. And the net migration is just taking into account those who are coming in and those who are coming out. And from the Home Affairs side, we are able to understand those who are coming in, but those who are going out, we are also relying on the censuses that are done by other countries because they are also key as an input into understanding your international migration pattern. So the number that you are referring to, which I showed on the Citizen when they was presented, so it's a net migration. So it's at the total level between 2001 and 2026. And we need to read it quite clear. This is the net migration, meaning it's taking account those are coming, those are going out within that particular period as an estimate. When you look at for whites, in that same period, it's in minus. So we're seeing a minus net migration, meaning we are seeing less of white population coming in, but we're seeing them more coming out compared to the other population group. So that 500,000, it's a net migration for all, irrespective of the population group in that particular age, in that particular period.
Okay, so in terms of these things, I mean, I understand that many white South Africans tend to go to European countries or the USA, Canada, and Australia. I mean, do you have a breakdown of those numbers, and is there a trend that you can pick up from there?
So if you look at the other report that we have released, because in this report the main thing is to look at the population numbers and profile who's in terms of in the demographic variables. But if you look at the other reports that we have done around migration profile, we are also looking at those countries that are receiving, and it's a matter of scale. So if you look at your education, you see that the global north will attract, even irrespective of white or even black, they will migrate to those particular countries. Your Asia also is also one of the destinations that most will go, especially looking for a job and also in terms of education. And then if you have those with less skills and looking for other opportunities, you see that they are also migrating within the region itself. So it depending on the purpose of migrating to a particular country. It's either because of work or it's because of education. So it will depend on the purpose.
So let's just focus on that part. I know you touched on work. I mean, can we sort of dig deeper into that in terms of generally, well, in this case, but in general, what are the reasons that people actually leave a country? One is leaving temporarily, I mean, for example, you could get an ambassador, a South African ambassador who's been posted to the Netherlands. That person is not emigrated. They're leaving the country for a 3, 4, 5-year post, right? The other is people who pack up and leave, who emigrate. I mean, what are the reasons why they do that?
it's a couple of reasons. One, as you said, it's work-related. It's reuniting with the families, because there are families that are staying abroad, then they want to go back and reunite with the families. And it could also be an issue of an education opportunity for you to go and study in abroad. So there's a couple of reasons. And also could also be an issue of lifestyle, that you want to adapt to a certain lifestyle, therefore you go and stay in a certain due restriction. So there's different reasons, and hence when you come into migration, there's a pull and push factors that one needs to take into account. What else when you look at South Africa in terms of those who are coming, especially from SADC, majority it has to do with economic reasons coming this side to look for opportunities. But other regions you may look at is political regions, and also with the wars that are happening within, conflicts that are happening within those regions. They are also driving the migration.
Okay. So I'll get to demographic regional shifts within the domestic shifts rather in just a moment. But in terms of what you have that Stats SA puts out, right? Clearly, okay, maybe it's not your job to provide analysis for it, but from a government point of view, what would be the factors they would be looking at in terms of what it tells them about our country?
The National Statistical Agency, its work is to ensure that the government is aware of the number of people that within the borders of South Africa. And that's one, because that is key for government. They need to understand how they're going to service the people who are with them. We are telling them we are 6.1 million, that are people within the borders. We are going further and saying, if you look at Gauteng, it's provinces that had the majority of the people in South Africa. And again, we see Gauteng as a preferred destination by those who are also coming outside. They will come to Gauteng because Gauteng as an economic hub, it attracts more. And even within our migration pattern within the provinces, Limpopo is also contributing in terms of the numbers in Gauteng. Whereas Western Cape is receiving a lot of people coming from Eastern Cape, but it also has people who are coming from outside who are also migrating to Western Cape. And then we are also seeing Gauteng also to a large extent also contributing to...
Because, there's also been that trend of what is called migration specifically to the Western Cape. Do the numbers tell us that it's correct, or is it just an over-exaggeration?
I think when coming to numbers, for us, it's any data set that shows any more, especially when coming to migration, because a migration is quite a challenging one, and especially if you look at the data sources that are available. So any data source that is available that shows that we take into account, especially for a model like this, because you really have to account for each and every movement. And I wouldn't say it's exaggerated, but I would say this is the reality of our migration pattern in South Africa, where you see now the other thing that I also want to mention is that the migration, when you look at it in terms of sex and gender, you see that it's male dominant. So you see that now more males are migrating, and this has been a trend that we've seen over time, especially with our economic hubs that are centers around two provinces, which is your Gauteng and Western Cape, and to some large extent also to KZN. And here I'm referring to eThekwini. So that on its own, it's influencing how we see the profile of our migration.
What about, I know to a degree you've touched on it from a SADC perspective, but are there also examples of immigration into our country from other countries north of the SADC region, right? And number two, other countries from Europe, from the Americas, from Asia, that is notable?
We are seeing if you look at the data that come from Home Affairs, that you look at the people who are coming through our ports of entry. For a month of May, we were talking about 2.9 million travelers. And if you look at it and profile it and see to try and understand whether they were here for visiting, and you get to understand that we are receiving more coming from the SADC, and most our tourists who are staying for a little bit longer, they are coming from the European countries. And if you look at within the domestic, within the continent, you see that the Kenya is what's one of our biggest market that also bringing from, and the purpose is mostly for business, or else your SADC is for other reasons, but not necessarily for business, but for visiting friends, because we also noticed that within the SADC region, there's also family ties where people from Lesotho will come to South Africa to come and visit and stay, and sometimes they even come and study because of the family ties that are between. And similarly with Zimbabwe also, there is some family ties that are there. So depending on which region you're coming from, and the profile will be different, and at the same again, the purpose of you moving to a country will also depend. Again, is that pull and push factor that I was referring to.
So just before we wrap up, there's also been this fact that the sense that people have emigrated, may well be returning, and you know, are the numbers significant?
I mean, if you look at the net migration, you see that it depends on which population group. So for white, we are seeing a negative, which means we're seeing less coming back. We're seeing more going out. And again, with the black population, we're seeing a positive, which means we're seeing more coming in. So again, that it tells us that we do have people who are coming back into the country, and at the same time, we have two people are coming back. But depending on the population, and also depending on the reason that I said, it depends on the reasons. Because as you say, some may go for work purpose for a certain period of 2 years to 3 years, and then they will have to come back. Some will go for education purposes, but some will relocate because of their reuniting with their families, which they don't necessarily planning to come back.
So just the last thing, of all the stats we've spoken about now regarding, you know, population shifts, right? Which one for you has most surprised you?
I think as a statistician, as numbers don't surprise us. As numbers, we are here to share numbers as they are. I think what is key, which we are noticing, is that we're starting to understand now much better our fertility rate, which shows a decline over time. And this has affected how the population numbers look like. And again, this is something that we're also studying and also looking at it quite clearly. And we also looked at it from other data sources. We are also starting to notice the same, that the fertility is also dropping.
Okay,
again,
that's where...
in the provinces like your Gauteng and the Western Cape, which already it had a lower fertility rate, which was above the SA fertility rate, which was 2.2. So we are also now starting to see that, and then we'll see it in the next subsequent years to say what does it mean for South Africa as the fertility rate is dropping, and it will drop to what level.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing those insights, those stats. Solly Molaye, the acting DDG responsible for population and social statistics at Stats SA. Right, you may have picked out some of the issues of that conversation, and if that's the case, what about you raising it? What would you like to talk about regarding that? But it's also possible you could be talking about other things, including the fact that Donald Trump is now suggesting, not confirmed, that he may not be coming to South Africa for the G20 summit. But anything else for you that moves the national pulse, I certainly want to hear it. And you can call in right away. We'll take it live, 0614 104 107 via WhatsApp, text or voice note. But to call in live, it's 086 000 2032. This, as always, is the National Pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Breaking news. SARS has enhanced the personal income tax return form. It has simpler questions that adapt to your income and deductions based on your answers. Whether you're employed or self-employed, the digital form has built-in guidance and the option to save and finish later. Tax matters, so does your time. File with ease on e-filing or the SARS Mobi app today. Go to sars.gov.za. SARS, at your service.
Hear the rhythm, feel the heat at the Imbaula Music Festival, where music, culture and community come alive. Tune in to Seasons with KG Mwekezi and the soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay, coming to you live from the Pretoria Botanical Gardens from 10 a.m. on the 2nd of August 2025. Come and vibe to Sunel musician Calvin Momo, Amanda Black, Zingo Malo, Trompis, and many more. More than music, share stories, spark change, and unite against gender-based violence. Grab your tickets at imbaula.co.za. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, Thabo saying it's good for us if Trump stays away. Otherwise, he will see massive anti-Trump protests and it will harden his attitude towards us. That comes from Thabo. What do you think? Eric in Uppington. Go for it, Eric. Hi.
Hi, Mr. Garda.
Yeah.
I think this is deeper than we think it is, because, I mean, if he doesn't want to come, emergency, he's not coming to SA than throwing his toys around like we were small kids. There's something wrong here which is deeper than what we think. Out of the blue, he's not coming. There's so many issues in South Africa. There's genocide when there's none. And also, we are having criminals sending to Eswatini. And out of the blue, we have Sotho people are setting camp in South Africa to try to get land back in South Africa. So there's something going on to try to destroy the country. I'm not an intelligent person in terms of intelligence services, but something is wrong, which I believe Trump is pushing.
Okay, got that. Well, what is Trump pushing? Thanks for that, Eric in Uppington. Here's more. Chediso George Matakan is saying, afternoon, Ashraf, it's good for Trump not to come, even if he doesn't send a proxy. Africans should normalize to live without America, and this should be the beginning of that. I hear you, but there's one point of difference. This is not an African summit. It's a G20 summit. You know, it's 20 of the most industrialized nations in the world. It is that summit, and the America is a major player within that. There's more on that too, right? But there's also comments about the stats conversation we just had.
Hi, afternoon, Ashraf. You know, I really expected you to ask the Stats SA guy about the illegal immigration.
Thank you very much.
Because I think it's part of the national pulse. Everyone is interested in knowing how many illegal immigrants are we having. Because that's like one of the greatest problems in South Africa. And it's even seen by what's happening in Gauteng, where they chase them away from clinics because they're just crowding. The citizens are no longer getting services because of overcrowding from illegal citizens.
Okay, I hear you. Accepting, if you may have heard the conversation with Stats SA, they don't pass commentary. They certainly give you facts. And if they just look at total numbers, and I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, that they would cover that in terms of this particular conversation. But maybe it's an issue we can bring up later on if we haven't quite covered it in terms of what do they have in terms of the evidence. At the moment, as you may have heard, they just have broad speak issues on that. But I hear that. Point taken. Here's another.
After pulling the stunt that he did in the White House, it became very clear that Trump was not going to come to South Africa. Maybe he think Cyril Ramaphosa will reciprocate and embarrass him here. Maybe it's that fear. But I just don't think that he has any respect for South Africans. Donald Trump was never going to come to South Africa, and he will never set foot here. Sfika, Pietermaritzburg.
Okay, and what happens if it does come? Mastermind in Mpumalanga, go for it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf
Yeah.
and your listener,
Good
Professor.
talking to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to just comment about for not coming of Mr. President of South America, Mr. Trump, because you see, he has a very wrong painting for the country since the beginning of that issues. You remember the AfriForum when they go in there. Mr. Trump has hated a lot of this country. In his statement, Mr. Ashraf, you remember he said, I don't care for them, I don't want nothing for them. You see, that man is showing a very, very anger about the country. So is that therefore he will never trying to come here. Lastly, Mr. Ashraf, I want to comment about the action that they have taken. They have shown a brave organization when they called to the House of Assembly in the national that the president must try to remove all the deputies because most of them, you see, the Ashraf shortly, we have them, but they don't help the nation. So what they use to have a deputy while the nation is still complaining for many things while they are there. And analysts say they are almost 43 and they catch almost 1.5 billion a year. That money can be spent somewhere.
Well, I need to move on. We need to, just very quickly, we need to move on to news now, yeah? Oh, okay. I'll tell you what, we've got a podcast of that conversation with the Action SA spokesperson a few days ago, in fact, about just that, their move to cut down the numbers of deputy ministers, in fact, to ban them completely. The whole principle of deputy ministers. You concur with that? I wonder. On Dele Mbana, it's with the news headlines, it's just gone 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, 2 more suspects have been arrested by the political killings task team in connection with the murder of DA Chief Whip in the Umgeni municipality in Tlalayinza, Ndlovu. Firefighters are battling a wildfire in Plattenberg Bay in Western Cape. Guardian Route District Municipality's Fire Chief Dion Stoffels says the fire is stretching over 3 blocks of plantation, and medics in Sudan say 13 children have died as a result of a severe shortage of food in a displacement camp in East Darfur State. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R21 southbound in Kempton Park has a crash reported before the R23 Benoni exit. The N12 westbound in Alberton has a crash before the R59 Reading interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound a stationary truck before Hammersdale. In Cape Town, the M3 both ways queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, let's talk about our national football team.
Yeah, Bafana coach Molefi Ntseki has called on a squad filled with 15 players who are currently without clubs as they prepare for the African Nations Championships next month. Despite this, Ntseki, who's also the SAFA's acting technical director, says that he's confident in the quality of the team. The group includes the likes of Keegan Dolly, Neo Maema and Ramahlwe Mphahlele, to name a few.
It has always been a challenge from our first game against Egypt and then the one against Malawi. But I think the players that were made available for selection are the players that are good quality players that are very much proud to be selected and to be part of this team. And you can tell the attitude and the work rate of the players that we have had since we started with the qualifiers and the ones that we have and we played today. We have got 15 of them that are unattached, but it is not because of lack of quality from the side. There are many other reasons why these players are not attached, and these are good quality players. They've been in the league for more than 5-10 seasons, so you can't go wrong if ever you have this type of players that are part of the team going into CHAN. So I'm really very, very impressed, very happy to have this group. And in terms of the social cohesion, how they relate to each other, how do they relate to every member of the technical team, you can tell these are matured players.
Elsewhere, Orlando Pirates have appointed Nkosinathi Sibisi as the club's new captain, with Thapelo Qoki and Mbegezeli Mbogazi named as vice captains. The captaincy role was vacant since the departure of long-serving defender Innocent Maila, and Pirates says that the leadership vote was conducted confidentially by the players for the players. In cricket, Mitch Owen has been named in both of Australia's squads for short format series against South Africa in the country next month. The 23-year-old scored 125 runs and took 2 wickets as Australia swept West Indies in all the 5 T20s in the Caribbean this month. Mitch Marsh captains both T20 and ODI squads in the absence of regular 50-over skipper Pat Cummins, who will sit out the series, with fellow quick Mitch Stark and paceman Josh Hazelwood and batter Travis Head returned to both squads as Australia continue their preparations for the T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka early next year. In tennis, top-seeded Alexander Zverev beat Adam Walton 7-6 and 6-4 at the National Bank Open in his first match since Wimbledon. Zverev is trying to get back on track after reaching the Australian Open final in a strong start to the season. The German is ranked third but seeded number 1 in this tournament that he won back in 2017. This is after the withdrawals of Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. Finally, in rugby, Sanlam Bueland Cavaliers captain Marilyn Williams says that their 37-35 opening round win over the Toyota Cheetahs was the perfect way to announce their return to Currie Cup Premier Division. Back in the top flight for the first time since 2016, Bueland showed they're not just here to make up the numbers.
We pride ourselves in what we do. It doesn't matter who we play against. You need to respect us because we respect our position. So as the game works, we believe in what we stand for and what we do. So we pride ourselves in everything.
Alrighty, I'll have more on other sport in the next hour.
Okay. Well, I mean, just to that point about the 15 players who are not linked to clubs, I mean, that's not a surprise considering the nature of that the tournament, right? This African Championship. I mean, it's not AFCON.
It's not AFCON at all.
So it's a feeder tournament, really speaking.
Yeah, basically.
As Richard.
And I guess it's perhaps he's thinking from also a point of view of giving them game time.
Well, that's how you build. That's how you build your squad, I would think. Okay, more sport in an hour.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's talk about, interesting, we spoke about Donald Trump just now. Central to that is some key developments that you need to take a note of. Away from the rhetoric, there's the reality of where we are as a country and the fact that our relationship with the USA, is important, it is significant. So what happens when those things change, right? And then central to that is the farming community and therefore agriculture. So let's talk about some of the imminent changes with Wandile Sihlobo, who's the chief economist of the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa, AgBiz as it's called. Wandile, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Good to connect with you, my good sir.
Thank you. Right, now we're talking to you at a time where effectively, I mean, you've set the agenda of what's likely to happen based upon the agenda setting of the USA over the last few weeks, in fact, that comes into play or into force imminently. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think where we're sitting now, particularly as the farming sector, I would categorize it as a state of a profound uncertainty. For the listeners who haven't followed the farming economy closely, very briefly, we are this sector that exports roughly half of what it produces. And of course, we export after having taken care of the domestic needs. And what we send to exports, we get an export revenue of around $13.7 billion US. Now, the US is an important aspect of that export activity. It accounts for about 4%. It may not look big then when you're thinking about 4% of the 13.7 billion, because that's just around $500 million US. But the dilemma with it is that it is in few sectors and in a few provinces. Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Mpumalanga, amongst those with citrus, nuts, table grapes, and the likes. And I think at the moment that we are in now, we are halfway, almost somewhere, I would say 70%, 80% done with our export season for citrus, but we're still exposed and we still have another volume to send. And I think that the potential changes on the tariffs, if indeed we land at 30%, there's then the worry there. But towards the end of the year, we'll also be starting to export our table grapes, and wine and nuts is other things that continue, and the ostrich leathers. And I think the dilemma is on that side to say, one, what will our competitors get? Because if our competitors in the US market get lower tariffs than us, then they may wash us out of that market. And of course, there are consideration on thinking about the jobs, and the other thing are backwards. And that's the broad map, Ashraf, that I would put forward when one try to contextualize on where does agriculture come into this picture.
So therefore, it may be difficult to say what happens down the line, but so therefore, imminently. So we're talking August now, right? What's the most pressing issue you'd be looking out for?
I think the most important thing right now is how industry associations, including ourselves at the Chamber, work to assist the South African authorities with any inputs that they need to firm up the offering that they're having with the US, because we think that that is an important aspect that we do. The second thing we have to be thinking about it, Ashraf, because we must accept, as you have done a number of times here in the National Pulse, that the world is changing right before us at a high speed. And then we must begin then to think about how do we get out of these dimensions by having as many variations in places that we can export to, which is this export diversification that we are talking about. But it's happening at a time where everyone is diversifying, which means then there's a tougher competition. What then I would look to is to say continue pressing on the US, but then we allocate a lot of resources, government and the private sector and academia, on searching for new export markets, doing whatever research and whatever studies that are necessary to pinpoint those markets and all of the things, so that the necessary arrangements continue on that, because sooner or later we will need to be moving on those. And the diversification is not to replace the US, because ultimately we still have so much land to plant, so much produce to export in the coming years. That diversification in any way will be necessary, but right now it is perhaps maybe much more urgent. In as far as the rands and cents of what could be lost and how many jobs could be cost, I'm hesitant to speak with confidence on that, Ashraf, because as you'll imagine, a lot depends on what the competitors get relative to us, because what the tariffs do, they reduce the competitiveness, not necessarily take away your penetration of a particular market.
Important points there. So therefore, right, if we deal with what we know, that 30% tariff, so you're saying, in fact, if the USA is dealing with 10 countries that they import from in terms of agriculture, and if other countries have to pay a lesser tariff, we actually already outpriced on that if prices are the same already, right? What then should the plan be from a South African perspective to be able to handle, say, the next few months? Or is the next few months too early to tell?
I think the next few months are too early to tell, given there's a lot of things that are moving at the same time. But I think, which is now conversations that we have all been having with government and private sector, is that whatever deal we are arguing for now with the US, we are always having to take it as a transition period to something. You will recall an important statement issued by Minister Paxtau and Minister Lamola at the end of April, where they said, one, we value the US market, and we agree with them as industry on that. Second, we want to ensure that we find a trade agreement with the US. And three, the issues of diversification. But I think we need to move to a point where we have a much more ambitious trade agreement with the United States, because we have been benefiting on them on a unilateral arrangement of the AGOA, which is they were just slashing tariff for particular product from us. And I think then the medium to long term is about find a deal now but then look forward to negotiate a free trade agreement, which will be, or with all of the specificity that will be necessary. And that will take some time because the deal is just to get us off the road now with the broad parameters. But I think we need to go to something else because the US remains fundamentally important, not just for us, but for a number of sectors in our economy.
So when you say find a deal now, I mean, who should be finding the deal from the South African side, meaning who drives the deal forward on behalf of our country?
So on behalf of our country, Ashraf, and I want to be clear on this because I have been in conversation throughout with a number of people to just say to South Africans that I am aware, I mean, there's a lot of work that is underway. The DTIC colleagues are working, the DERCO people at the presidency, they are doing a couple of work and supported by us and the other industries in terms of inputs and the thinking around that. So there is that work. When I say find a deal now, I mean hoping for better fortunes on what South Africa will present in engagements with the United States in as far as that is concerned. And I'm not saying something South Africans are not aware of. If you think about the statement released by the DTIC yesterday, to a certain extent, it alluded to that. But I think beyond those things of today, it's about the long-term engagement with the US, which is where then that free trade agreement, as well as thinking about the export diversification more broadly. But of course, the diversification takes time. The diversification also considers taste and preferences and incomes of various regions. And it's not an easy thing because there's also some soft infrastructure that is already established with other markets, either its relationship or financial arrangements and logistics. And all of those things take time. But I think there's pressure on everyone that we move with speed across all of those angles.
Interesting. If I go back to that meeting at the White House, and by the way, just to remind the audience, we're chatting to Wandile Sitlobo, who's the chief economist of the Agricultural Business Chamber of Commerce of South Africa. In fact, we're called AgBiz, right? So Wandile, if I go back to that meeting with President Ramaphosa and Donald Trump and the golfers and others at the White House, do you get any sense that, you know, whatever may have happened at the meeting since then, either behind the scenes or in front of the scenes, if I can put it that way, there's a lot that's been happening in terms of actual negotiations, or in fact, very little has happened?
No, I would take your former point and saying a lot of interaction has happened, because remember, before that, there was minimal engagement. And I think it was important that whatever was said because at the end of the day, it was one of the standing point in between the conversations. The very fact that we are preparing something that we can propose, the very fact that the South African authorities sat in Angola with the US authorities at the end of June and had a conversation, forget what the outcome of the conversation may have been. But I think in terms of speaking, there is an established pathway on that, which is why then I think it's important right now for us to think about our economy, to think about this offering, as well as whether then we will be able to find a mutual point of agreement with the US. But I think, Ashraf, it's also important for us now to remind South Africans again that, I mean, there's difficulties across all of these countries. I'm looking at India now threatened with 25% tariff, EU getting at 15%, Japan at 20%. So it's a double digit across the board, which is the one aspect that I think it keeps the South African firms and many others very nervous, even though they are aware that there's work being done by the relevant departments and stakeholders.
You know, that word nervous is such an interesting one. Should South Africa, and South Africa as a country, should South Africans, should our farmers, should we be nervous?
I think we cannot underestimate the gravity of the current moment, although the only way we can do is to sharpen the insights and engage favorable with the US and see if there will be a common interest on that. And that's what we are doing at the chamber and in assistance in assisting the government also in those aspects. But broadly, I mean, the uncertainty, we are in a state of profound uncertainty, as I said, and unfortunately this comes with significant costs to businesses. It's one thing for me to talk about it, but if you are running a business and you have greater exposure there, it is quite a difficult space to be in.
Now, let me just change tack slightly. You know, Ghulam Balam was the group CEO of Standard Bank. I think he, and I'm quoting him loosely, he made the point about, you know, the Americans engaging on a type of economic Brexit, sort of separating their economy from the world. I mean, do you see that happening, and to their detriment, as maybe the British are discovering now?
I would say, Ashraf, our reading of the situation, for example, sitting here at the chamber, we of the view that the American economy will remain very important to what we do, our export activity, but also there's a lot more. We are talking about just goods here, but if you think about services, there's a lot of interactions that we have with the US-based firms and stuff. So we've taken a posture in a number of our communications and writing of saying we want to strengthen trade ties with everyone. The US may have taken a particular posture to the world, but we want to ensure that at least as far as agriculture, agribusinesses, and our associated services, we remain in pretty much better sync on that. And I think that's what even the South African authorities have communicated on it. While at the same time, though, Ashraf, I will say and say it firmly that the Middle East is very important to us in agriculture in South Africa. We all desire, even if you talk to Agri-SA or ourselves, to deepen our exports in the Middle East. We see it as a growing region with better incomes. We also like Asia a lot. And as soon as we deepen access into China and the others, we see all of those as areas of diversification. Right now, Ashraf, we are talking about the US. But I think one of the aspects that at some point you and I have to talk about is the issue of higher tariffs in some of our friendly countries, even within the BRICS.
All right, maybe pause on that. Let me pick up on that, because I'd like to do that right after this.
First Take SA on SAFM.
Our president, Paul Biya, has been in power since in the 1960s, where he was serving as the Secretary General at the presidency and then became the Prime Minister in 1975 and eventually the President in 1982. This guy is older than the atomic bomb. He's older than the space landing. He's older than the United Nations, the AU, and the UN all joined together. And he's older than everything else we know about the country's presidency.
First Take SA on SAFM, weekdays 5 to 6 a.m.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
And not just with me, we're chatting to Wandile Sihlobo. By the way, you can comment on the conversations we've been having about South Africa, agriculture, South Africa versus USA, or South Africa and the USA, and South Africa versus the world too, and the world regarding agriculture, which is such an important contributor to South Africa's economy. Wandile Sihlobo is the chief economist of AgBiz, right? So, Wandile, you made the point about talking about high tariffs within BRICS countries, so-called friends and allies of South Africa. Tell me more about that.
And I think this one, Ashraf, it's an important conversation, because you and I sat in August 2023 in Johannesburg in Sandton in the BRICS session.
We certainly did.
The conversation that you facilitated was around of saying, how do we deepen the economic ambition within BRICS so that we move past the big political speech? And I hope I'm quoting you correctly on that, but it was around those points. And in agriculture, you were right, because the challenge that we have is that if you're trying to export the South African wine to China, you face tariffs of between 15 and 20%. Higher than what you see in the US. If you're trying to take macadamia out of Mpumalanga and send them to China, you face tariffs of around 12%. The same things apply with India. The key thing then for us, which is our desire, is to say, how do we ensure that China can lower the tariffs and remove the phytosanitary barriers so that at least we can have a deeper engagement with them? Because that BRICS grouping, especially now expanded, is quite significant, accounting for over half of global agricultural trade, but very little intra-trade. And we see it as an area for export diversification while we are mending issues with the US, because we still, Ashraf, again, have so much land to plant, over 2 million hectares that we are yet to plant, so many trees that South Africa has planted that are yet to bear fruits, and all of that will need to be sent somewhere, which is why then these exports and logistics is always in our lips whenever we talk.
Well, you see, what you're saying is rather puzzling. Now, we know on the one hand that people like Donald Trump, I mean, they take every opportunity to knock down the BRICS because it's really not in his interest to see a very strong and formidable BRICS grouping, right? On the other hand, what you're saying is these are already friends and allies, part of a grouping, and countries like South Africa, maybe others too, they know
exports. So it's almost twice what we send to the US. But if you were to say, okay, what's the share of the agricultural exports to BRICS? They are 8%. BRICS absorbs as much as the UK. While the UK is a standalone country. So that's the difficulty for me to say. And these countries, it's not like they are not spending a lot of money, because China alone spends over 200 billion US dollars on agricultural imports a year. And then Saudi Arabia spends over 20 billion US dollars on agricultural imports. All of what we are exporting is about 13.7 billion US dollars, which means China, they can buy everything, conversation and the sense you get even when you're interacting with the industry, which is why the export diversification story becomes so urgent and so important right now.
Okay, just the last thing before I let you go for today. Maybe we need to have a series of conversations around agriculture, Wandile. I have no doubt about that, right? But for now, we had a chat. In fact, there was a UN report around hunger globally, and we had a chat with a representative from Operation Hunger about so many people who are struggling to survive, meaning steeped in poverty, not being able to eat the daily meals. And some of the issue of agriculture in terms of providing the daily subsistence came through, right? Where do we fit in domestically in terms of us as a country being able to provide the food security that we need?
Ashraf, very quickly there, we are stuck with about two problems. One is perhaps maybe not a problem, but where we are food secure at a national level. And in fact, we are the most food secure country in sub-Saharan Africa, second in Africa at a national level, when you look at the Global Food Security Index by The Economist and Corteva. But we are having challenges at a household level, which is where those colleagues are speaking at. We have a double-digit figure, over 6 million South Africans that go to bed without sufficient nutrition. When you dive deep into it and say, what's the problem? The issue, Ashraf, is not affordability per se or availability or nutrition of food, but rather it's on the income poverty side. Regardless of where the pricing will be, if there's a large number of households with just no income, that begins to be a problem, which then requires a more ambitious conversation about social policy, the interventions at a household level, but also interventions in terms of creating as much work as we can, because some of the people that are in hunger are people that can't work. It's kids and the old and the elderly. How do we support that, while at the same time then thinking about creating as many jobs as we can, because the core problem of South Africa is income poverty, but food is amongst the most affordable countries when you look at various indices in the world. Even if you take, for example, the Economist Burger Index and you look where, as a just general measure of where South Africa sits on that, that's at least at a very high level, without minimizing the pain that many households face, the situation that we see from our side.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, thanks for that. Thanks for the thought leader conversation. Lots to consider, Wandile, and perhaps we need to zone in on some of the aspects that you've raised now in the weeks ahead, because I think a lot will happen in the next month or so in South Africa, in the USA, around the world. So thank you for your time. Wandile Sitlobo, the Chief Economist of AgBiz, which is the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa. Let's do this before we get to the news. There's comments from you, so let's try and get some thoughts that you've raised, and here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Salim from Durban. Ashraf, it's a given that there will be no changes. There will be terrific in South Africa. One must understand that the pro-Israeli lobby is very powerful in the US. At the same time, this has been a build-up for a long time. You remember we had that issue with Ambassador Rikati when he said the Russian ship was loading arms. So, they've been building a case against South Africa. So, end of the day, they don't recognize that we are a good partner to deal with. So, I think we have to live with it now and face the consequences. But I can tell you what, we need to start diversifying.
Well, maybe that's the point about facing the consequences, right?
On SAFM, I would like to say that President Trump and the USA are not giving us any sleepless night because we have the white people in our backyards. The white people, European descendants, are here in a SADC region. Most of the countries in this region are concentrated with the white people from Europe or that were originally from Europe. So there's no way America can cut us off. If they cut us off, they are not only cutting us, the black people, they are also cutting the white people as well. So there's no way they can able to influence something that will also impact on their skin color. I thank you. That is Nkululeko Shongwe from Etozini, KZN.
So much to consider from that, but I wonder if others agree with you. I'm struggling to agree with you. Why would then Trump make the pronouncements that is already made? Before we get to the news, here's one last one. Oh, okay, I think there's something that's going wrong there. Let's pause on that. We'll get to the voice notes, more voice notes later on. Let's get to the news now. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, MK Party argues against the appointment of acting police minister, and 13 children die of severe food shortage in Sudan. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. Counsel for the MK Party, Advocate Anton Katz, says there is no provision for an acting minister to be appointed to cabinet. Katz was arguing in the Constitutional Court that the appointment of Professor Feroz Kachalia as acting police minister by President Cyril Ramaphosa is unlawful. He says Section 97 of the Constitution only allows the president to transfer a cabinet minister to another function.
So he says, well, I don't want to keep the minister here because it's not good for perception of policing in this country. I'll dismiss him. Next week, Justice Madlanga Commissioner Madlanga comes up with a clean bill of health for the current minister or the previous minister of police. The president can appoint him the next day. What harm has happened? Nothing. That's how it works. There's no need for suspension. The president can appoint on one day, dismiss on the next day.
2 more suspects have been arrested by the political killings task team in connection with the murder of the DA chief whip in the Umgeni municipality. Klalayenza Ndlovu was gunned down at his home in Mpopomeni, Niawik in KwaZulu-Natal in December 2023. This brings the number of arrested suspects to 5. The other 3 are Tobani Hlongwa, Kailihle Shabalala and Zwelithini Butelezi, who is an Induna at the Nxamalala Tribal Authority. The 3 are expected to appear again in the Howick Magistrate Court tomorrow. Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate elaborates.
2 additional suspects have been arrested today, which include a 56-year-old Nkosi and a 26-year-old suspect who coordinated the murder of the councillor whilst in Pietermaritzburg prison. The pair will appear before the Howick Magistrate Court on Thursday, the 31st of July. They will join suspects who were previously arrested and charged for the murder.
A wildfire at Kirland in Plettenberg Bay in the Western Cape has been contained by crews of Garden Route District Municipality, Pito Municipality and MTO Forestry, as well as working on fire. Mopping up operations are currently in progress. The plantations of MTO Forestry were affected during the evening and into the morning. Cooler weather has set in, which will assist in final extinguishing efforts. Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Sindisiwe Chikunga, says gender-based violence is difficult to prevent as it often happens behind closed doors. However, she says South Africans are now aware of it as more women are coming forward. The Human Sciences Research Council report from 2024 showed that 1 in 3 women in the country has faced intimate partner violence at some point in their lives. Chikunga says government is planning to step up its support program programs.
In fact, women are reporting cases of gender-based violence now, and that is why we are forced to increase the number, for instance, of Tutuzela centers and the shelters, because if you don't have this, then of course you don't know where to take them to. And that is why a few years ago we're talking about few Tutuzela centers. We're now at 66. They're not enough. And that is why we now have great, for instance, organizations that are operating within police stations, so that when you come to report gender-based violence, you don't report it at the community center, but you are taken to a side room.
Medics in Sudan say 13 children have died as a result of a severe shortage of food in a displacement camp in East Darfur State. The Sudan Doctors Network says conditions in Lagawa camp have sharply worsened, with reports of widespread malnutrition, especially among young children. The camp is home to at least 7,000 people. It's been subjected to repeated attacks by armed groups. Recapping the top story, counsel for the MK party advocate Anton Katz says there is no provision for an acting minister to be appointed to cabinet. I'm Mondelambana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the South SASCOC and Federations formed task team over Mackenzie's big funding cuts and FIFA World Cup draw in Vegas on the 5th of December. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg is where crashes reported before Heidelberg Road, and the R21 southbound in Boksburg slow moving towards the link to the N12 east, and the N14 westbound in Lanseria has delays towards the R512 Malibongwe Drive exit. In KZN, the M7 has truck congestion reported at South Coast Road, so expect delays, and the N3 westbound a stationary truck before Hammersdale. In Cape Town, Strand Road eastbound in Stikland, slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Kromboom Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Wayne, for you, what is the real deal? For me, it's really customer service. It's getting my money's worth. So if I phone Outsurance and I've got a problem, they're always there. So it's not just, we've got your money, now off you go. No, money is not the biggest deal for me. It's service. Just phone Outsurance, get a quote and see what they can offer you. If you don't save that 321 like I did, you might get a 500 or $1,000 back. Service and savings, you'll always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and say, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information online.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
It all starts with FNB Private. With secure, easy payments for a hassle-free overseas holiday. Tap, swipe or go digital with your FNB Visa cards. Earn rewards when using your FNB credit card or global account debit and virtual card. You can even fund your global account on the FNB app while traveling. Make the most of every moment. Unlock invaluable with FNB Private. Help changes everything. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider. TCs earn rules and limits apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, you may want to comment on some of the things we've spoken about. One, the fact that Donald Trump has intimated, not confirmed, intimated that he may not come to South Africa for the G20 summit. That's point one. Point two, the conversation we had around, population numbers and who's come in and who's gone out, and they've broken down into racial categories, and certainly more white South Africans leaving than certainly entering the country. So there's a deficit on that, and you may comment on that. Then the conversation we had with Wandile Sitlobo from AgBiz, just regarding the tariff changes that will come into effect now, August, and how that will change things in our country and the big challenges we face, and perhaps maybe a relook at how the BRICS tariffs works and where are the advantages in that too. But let's get on to another issue, right? It's been, widely reported that earlier today, the EFF councillor Mzubanzi Dambuza was choked to the point of unconsciousness. Let me repeat it so you got it. The councillor Dambuza of the EFF was choked to the point of unconsciousness. This is in Cape Town. According to the Good Party councillor Roscoe Palm, the incident happened when the Speaker of the City of Cape Town, that's Felicity Purchase, failed to maintain order in the council. So we will chat to Councillor Dambuza shortly, but firstly, let's get to the Councillor Palm, Roscoe Palm, the Good Party's councillor in the City of Cape Town, right? Councillor Palm, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good to be with you.
Thank you. So I gather you had, literally the bird's eye view of what happened. So what happened?
Well, Ashraf, once again, we were let down by the Speaker of Council. During a session, after the mayoral's address, according to Rule 11.2, the Council's own rules of order, the Speaker unlawfully allowed a point of order. And when Councillor Dambuza of the EFF raised this, she then called for people to enter the chamber to remove him from the chamber. Now, he was right about this, that she has been making up her own rules, but what happened next truly shocked me. I was right there. I recorded the entire incident. I witnessed, first of all, these I don't know what to call them, these law enforcement people, men manhandling women in that political party. But even more shocking than that, I witnessed the Councillor Dambuza being choked out. And after he passed out, they continued to choke him. Now, there was a ruck of people above him. So it was very hard to obviously get a camera right in there, but I managed to do that. After that, I would have done the same for any councillor of any party, regardless of who they are. When I saw that he was unconscious, I went to the Speaker's table and I said to the table that, there's a councillor who's unconscious and is continuing to be assaulted by these people. It was completely shocking, and it reminded me of the George Floyd incident. The person cannot participate or cannot have any agency or move once they're being choked out. And I think all of us who saw that are still very shaken by that, the brutality of it, and the implications for this council, in the City of Cape Town. We're increasingly being run by an iron fist. And clearly the Speaker has lost control. She has to step aside now to protect the integrity of the governance in the City of Cape Town.
Okay. In fact, we'll chat to Councillor Dambuza just now, which does sort of give one answer to that. He's feeling better, thank goodness, to be able to talk to us, right? But at the time that the councillor was being choked, right, people like yourself, was there any concern that, in fact, Councillor Dambuza's life may well be in danger? You never know what may happen next.
That's true. And, we've experienced that increasingly there's more of a authoritarian nature of enforcing or suppressing speech, even when opposition councillors are on the right side of council's rule of order. Once you undermine that, as a speaker who's supposed to be the Speaker of the Council of the City of Cape Town, not the Speaker of the DA, her responsibility is to the safety and the integrity of all of 231 councillors in the City of Cape Town. All we could do then was draw the attention to this. And in the fracas that followed, I'm just really lucky, given the brutality of that assault, that there's Councillor Dambuza appears to be okay. But I have subsequently given a statement to the police because what I witnessed today was just beyond the pale. It's something that you expect in an authoritarian regime, not in the city of Cape Town.
Just lastly, then, what was the response, from people like yourself and others, to the speaker, but also to the mayhem that was going on around you? Meaning, what were people feeling and thinking about it?
Our first concern, of course, is to the safety of a human being in this. You cannot, even if the speaker was correct, and she wasn't. Let me be clear, she wasn't correct. You cannot force somebody like that. You cannot assault someone like that under any circumstances. So we were all absolutely shocked. And, for me, what was the most disturbing thing is the applause of the DA councillors, It's like having a group of people applaud as a police officer kneels on George Floyd's neck. It's completely out of bounds. And I think now there's a turn that's happening in our politics, and it's clearly reached the City of Cape Town Council. We're not going to negotiate with anyone who perpetrates this kind of violence, this kind of impunity on elected public representatives. It's shocking, Ashraf. It has to end.
Well, I'll tell you what, thanks for alerting us to this. I think you did, and so did Councillor Shamima Saleh from the Al Jama as well. And if you're able to, maybe share with us some of the video and audio coverage of it, please pass it on to Temba, my producer. And if we're able to play some of that, we'd love to do that, purely because it certainly reflects to the national pulse, to this audience, exactly what happened. But for now, much appreciate your time. We'll chat to Councillor Dambuza right after this. Thank you.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Spar brings you super savings. Get Pampers Baby Dry Nappies or Nappy Pants Jumbo Pack for $229.99. Save 70 Rand. 2-ply Baby Soft Toilet Rolls 24s for $159.99. Save 56 Rand. Or 50ml Shield or Axe Roll-On Deodorant. Buy any two for 40 Rand. Save 14 Rand. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million Rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 6 August 2025 while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Breaking news. SARS has enhanced the personal income tax return form. It has simpler questions that adapt to your income and deductions based on your answers. Whether you're employed or self-employed, the digital form has built-in guidance and the option to save and finish later. Tax matters, so does your time. File with ease on e-filing or the SARS Mobi app today. Go to sars.gov.za. SARS, at your service.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so there we are. You've heard the voice of Roscoe Palm from the Good Party, effectively giving his account of what he saw and being very clear that, in fact, Councillor Dambuza was choked and actually fell into unconsciousness briefly. So let's bring in then the EFF councillor in the city of the Cape Town Council, and that's Imzubanzi Dambuza. Councillor Dambuza, appreciate you talking to us a fairly short while after your moments of trauma.
No, greetings to you and your listeners.
Thank you. I trust you're okay now, health-wise?
I'm fine, although some of the body pains now are starting to kick in, but I'm fine.
So, and I'm glad for that. Tell us what happened from your side.
We always, in the City of Cape Town Council, have a speaker that can run the council through the rules. She does not understand them, and she always needs to be given assistance to understand them. That is one. Secondly, she always does not use a fair process in approach. So, where the speaker sits on her left would be the opposition party, which is the ANC, EFF, Good, and NCC, and others. And then on the right, it would be DA councillors. In her approach, she will always be wanting to look at the opposition, naming the opposition, and calling on the opposition. But when there's something wrong being done by DA councillors, she does not want to call that out. So we put her in a position of saying, you are not doing things right in the House. You are not being fair. You are not being a speaker for the whole House, which you are supposed to be. And in this incident, I raised that during the question session, because what happened was at the time when the mayor just made his speech, and then after making his speech, there are 5 political parties that must be able to ask a question to the mayor. And the first one was the EFF. Through Councillor Chandela, a question was asked. As that was happening, there was heckling coming from the DA. There was shouting that was coming from the DA. There was chaos coming from the DA. I raised the fact that Councillor Moses has been doing this heckling and making noise. I was shut off. Immediately the speaker started calling on my name. And then a question was asked by the councillor of the Good Party. As the councillor of the Good Party was asking a question, the same thing, a councillor of the DA called the point of order in a process where a point of order is not allowed to be called. And the speaker allowed that process. By doing so, the speaker had violated the rules. The speaker then, when I raised these things, indicated that I must be kicked out of council. Now, the speaker is wrong on the rules, but she does not want to be told that she's wrong because she feels as the speaker, she's the only one who has the right to say anything.
Okay, so she was wrong on the rules, in your opinion, and then what constituted her deciding that you needed to be kicked out of the council? I know you objected to the rule, but what jumped to that level that you had to be kicked out of the council?
She indicated that she has named me 3 times and I must leave the council chamber. If I don't leave the council chamber, then I will be removed from council.
Okay, what happened next?
I informed the speaker that I won't be leaving the council because of the fact that I'm still within the rules of the council. She is following an incorrect rule, and I'm supposed to be within the rule of council. When that happened, she called for people to come and get me out. And when they came in, the caucus of the EFF moved close to me to try and give me a protection layer so that I'm not kicked out. Upon that happening, there are tables in the council chamber. So I moved underneath the tables in the council chamber where I could hold in one of the poles that whenever they are trying to remove me, they can't. And then they started moving the councillors of the EFF, even beating up women, even assaulting women in the process. Then when they could not get me out from pulling me, tearing my clothes.
Because you resisted, right? Just to be
correct,
clear.
I resisted. Right. But I was and it must be made clear, the form of resistance that I gave was not fighting back with no one. I was holding a pole, and I was not moving from that pole. Meanwhile, I was being pulled. I was not fighting, just holding that pole. In the process of holding that pole, then one of the officers came behind my neck and started grabbing me from behind and choking me. Now, one of the councillors of the EFF was sitting on top of me so that I don't move out. So this one grabbed me and held me and pulled me out. Now, I'm choking, so I cannot be able to focus on holding the pole. Now, I'm trying to make sure that whatever is choking me is getting off. So I was pulled out and I could not breathe. And then I'm trying to say to this guy, I can't breathe. He turns me around. Then he sits on top of me. Then he starts literally choking me. This is the time this is the second time now he's choking me. And then I pass out at that time.
And at that point when he was choking you, what were you feeling? Because I'm trying to be, I'm dismissing the political issues. I'm looking at you and your life. Did you fear for your life?
Most definitely, because at some stage, at first, when he started choking me, I said, "You are choking me, you are killing me. You are choking me, you are killing me." He did not listen to that. Then he gets me on my back, and then he starts continuing choking me. And you could see there's a rage with this guy, like he does not care as to what must happen with me. And none of the officers are stopping him around him, and they could hear me saying that you are choking me, and even other councillors, because ANC, NCC, and good councillors, was including Al Jamaa, were saying, "You are choking the councillor." He did not stop. He continued choking me, and one of the guys was holding my arm, my right arm aside, so that when I was trying to remove his arms, this other guy pulled my arm so that I'm not able to remove him. So now I'm left with only the left arm, trying to fight in order to get him to let go of me. But I can't because I'm losing breath.
All right. Then you passed out. How
Then
long did that take before you recovered consciousness?
I don't know how long it took, because it was not as long, because immediately after he started hitting me at the back. So I could hear that someone is hitting me at the back. And then I gained consciousness. When I just immediately gained consciousness. Then he started choking at me again.
Sure. Okay. Time is against us. How did this end? What do you want to do next? What do you feel?
We, as the EFF, have gone to the police station. A detective is currently busy with the case. Statements have been taken from all these political parties that took footage of the incident. A case of assault is open. But I personally, and the EFF, feels that there's a case of an attempted murder that has taken place here. This man was in a position of wanting to take my life, and he could have taken my life in the process. At some stage, then the executive director, Vincent Boto, arrived and stopped the process. But in all the footages that are there, you can see the executive director being there way before. He saw everything. He saw that I was choked, and then he came later on to stop these guys from doing what they did.
Sure. Okay. Let's leave it at that, because I think that story has a sequel to run. I have no doubt about that. Appreciate your time. Thank goodness you find it's a most dramatic story, and I certainly know from the good side as well, they certainly will take the issue further as well. So thank you for your time and sharing your story with us, Councillor Dambuza from the EFF, speaking after what an experience in the City of Cape Town Council chambers. This is the National Pulse.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get to further comments. In fact, you may want to comment about that. I'm sure you do, right? And if you are doing that, well, how do you do so? You can call in 086 000 2032 and then WhatsApp us 0614 104 107. That's voice notes, 30 seconds max, please. It really helps. Or you can send us a text message too, and you can also tweet out using the hashtag The National Pulse. So let's hear your comments, because that certainly should move the pulse, doesn't it?
Hi, Natashraf. I said this before and I'll say it again. Donald Trump is a lunatic. You can bring all the experts and they can try to guess this Donald Trump. The man is a lunatic. There's nothing wrong with what has been happening before with our economy and whatever deals we have been making with the United States. The problem is the man. The man is not playing the ball. The man is playing us as a country, as a nation.
Okay, got that one there, right? Here's another. Get the DA to get their side. It is disgraceful that this should happen. Until you get the DA side, you are being unfair and sensationalist. Then why would you say, that's you saying it, but then why would you say it's disgraceful that this should happen? You've also passed judgment saying it's disgraceful. In fact, this is not about a DA. This is actually about the Speaker. There's an eyewitness behind, but yes, I mean, this has just happened, and we will endeavour to certainly get the Speaker and whoever else can comment about that issue. But we certainly have got not just the DA or the EFF, we've actually got the Good Party representative who was standing behind the person in question.
Good day, Ashraf. Good day, Ashraf. Wonderful show always. It's Ali from Limpopo.
I want to comment on the issue of reducing the cabinet, what the party Action SA has took to say all the deputy ministers must be removed. I mean, it's simple, man. What are they really doing? Because of like now, the Minister of Police Mtunu has been sent on leave, and we have two deputy ministers that they can occupy that position, so they are useless. So I agree, they must be chopped. Thank you.
Okay, you say they must be chopped, not shopped. Maybe shipped could be, but it's not about whether they're useless. It's really about the bloated numbers. Like, what purpose do they really serve? So it's not a reflection on an individual. And I think that's the point that we must always talk about, is the principle of, can we really afford to have more deputies than actual ministers? And overall, what purpose do they really serve? 4:30, here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Bank South Africa's latest data shows that South African salaries held steady in June following 3 months of moderation. Advocate Darlin Pofu has argued that it was illegal for President Cyril Ramaphosa to have placed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave and appoint Professor Feroz Kachalia to act in his position. And the case against 6 suspects accused of the murder of 18 people at Ngobozana village in Lusikisiki last year has resumed at the local high court. There was a delay as one of the legal representatives of the suspects was reportedly stuck in a community protest on the R61 road between Mthatha and Port St. John's. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a stationary truck before Rigel Avenue. The M1 southbound queuing towards Boysons, and the N1 southbound in Fourways queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, the M7 is where truck congestion is reported at South Coast Road, so expect delays, and South Coast Road has truck congestion reported in that Rosberg area, so expect delays there as well. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, and Jan Smuts Drive southbound in Epping slow moving towards Gunners Circle Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
Right, Tim, you have lots to talk about. Where are you going to start?
Well, the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee President Barry Hendricks says that national federations have formed a strategic task team to engage Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie and his department after heavy funds cutting. Sports have been hit by budget cuts totaling to about 40 million rand this year, which has seen cuts in government funding of up to 60% for codes such as athletics and swimming, while SASCOC and a few others receiving nothing. SASCOC described the cuts as an unfolding financial crisis that will derail the upward performance trajectory of all the South African teams and individual athletes. Meanwhile, in football, AmaZulu President Sandile Zungu says that the club has decided to lower the team's average age for the coming season to just over 24 years from 30 after being labelled as the dumping grounds for players discarded by Johannesburg clubs. Now, Usutu parted ways with 17 players in a sweeping squad overhaul, and to inject fresh energy, the club has recruited the likes of striker Thando Ngwenya, defender Keegan Allen, and goalkeeper Darren Johnson, amongst others.
So we've cut off 6 years of the team, and the quality very good, if not better. So thanks to the Teko Modise, who basically sent shivers down our spine and woke us up from the slumber.
Well, Zungu also confirmed 3 players from the club's development ranks have been promoted to the first team.
The quality of our players, younger, hungry, if not hungrier. A lot of players have been promoted from the junior ranks. We think it's a kind of association that Premier is looking for. that we develop our own and grow our own timber and develop our own talent and showcase them. We think it's going to be a great season for Amazulu Football Club.
Elsewhere, Las Vegas will reportedly play host to the 2026 World Cup draw on the 5th of December. In all, 12 groups of 4 nations will be drawn. And in 1994, the draw was staged in Las Vegas, even though it was not a host city for any matches, a situation that is also the case for next year's event. In the meantime, Bayern Munich have concluded the signing of forward Luis Diaz from Premier League champions Liverpool for a reported fee that could rise to 75 million euros, which is around 1.5 billion rand. The Colombian, who won the Premier League, FA Cup and League Cup during his time at Anfield, has signed a contract with the Bundesliga champions until 2029. And Diaz made 50 appearances and scored 17 goals in all competitions last season as Arne Slot's team clinched the English title for the 20th time. In tennis, Coco Gauff made a winning return to the competition with a 7-5 and 4-6, 7-6 win over Danielle Collins in the second round of the National Bank Open. Gauff had to overcome 23 double faults to win for the first time since the French Open final. Then finally in cycling, Tadej Pogacar will miss the Volta Spana in order to rest after winning a 4th Tour de France title. The 26-year-old sealed his Tour de France title on Sunday after 3 weeks of dominance, but said that fatigue had crept in during the final days. Pogacar will return to action at the one-day races in September before shifting focus to the UCI Road World Championships in Rwanda, where he is the defending champion. I'll have more in the next hour.
Perfect. We'll hold you to that and let's talk then. Yeah, thank you.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Mr. Govender, congrats on the retirement. You just sold your car to We Buy Cars. Tell us about it.
Yes, it just gathered dust in the garage, so I exchanged it for cold hard cash. Now my wife and I can enjoy a stress-free retirement.
Retiring the car as you retire. Nice. So why We Buy Cars?
It was so quick. They came over to our house to do the evaluation, and we sold it the same day. Tops, man.
Okay, so now you got even more time on your hands, eh?
Exactly.
We Buy Cars. Geared for your next chapter. Geared for you.
This Mandela Month, Nelson Mandela once said,
"We have traveled a long journey. We have fought for peace and reconciliation, for social justice, for all men, women, and children."
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, to the markets we go with Makwe Masilela, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, you've got news local and global in a moment, but let's start with the results from Glencore.
Production report, a mixed production report, because the likes of your copper, cobalt, zinc, the production growth was up, and then ferrochrome production was down 28%, and the company will make almost an 18 billion rand cost saving as it responds to lower commodity prices pressures, and they have been grappling with lower prices for coal, and that is traditionally their biggest earner, while prices for cobalt have also fallen, and the March was US-China talks ended without a tariff truce extension, which expires on the 12th of August. And South Africa is still waiting for a response to its trade proposal and not sure of reaching the deadline that is coming this Friday. And the main event today, Ashraf, is the U.S. interest rate decision, where it is expected to leave rates unchanged, though some officials are in favor of lowering borrowing costs. And our rate decision is tomorrow and also expected to hold. And we saw the Eurozone GDP surprising us, expanding in Q2, benefiting from better than predicted performance in France and Spain, and the US GDP rebounded, and thanks to consumer spending, Ashraf, monetary policy might
be among the few risks left for the stock market. And locally, after 3 months of moderation, our average take-home pay held steady in June as slowing inflation and the prospect of lower interest rates provided some breathing room for salary earners. Oil prices continue to get a lift from the potential U.S. sanctions on Russia oil, and China, which is the largest buyer of Russian oil, was also warned that it could face huge tariffs if it kept buying oil from Russia. Brent crude is up 0.3% at $71 a barrel. And profit-taking weighed on the yellow metal as traders are waiting for the U.S. interest rate decision. Gold is down 0.6% at 3,305. Platinum down a whooping 1.5% at 1,384. Markets continue to trade in positive territory, with the JSE up a mere 0.1%. Ashraf, the higher the market goes, the more vulnerable the market is, and we see the rand has fell 0.4% against the US dollar, 17.94, 23.82 against the pound, and 20.54 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that connection. We'll do it again tomorrow as always, right? But a reminder as well too that we have an hour of the markets with Jimmy Moyaha coming up on the SAFM market update from 6 to 7 p.m. This is the National Pulse.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, I tell you what, on a day of high drama in the Cape Town City Council, and I welcome your comments based upon what you've just heard. Let's move on to another issue that really is equally dramatic, maybe even if not worse. The Health Ombudsman, Professor Taule Mokoena, has released the findings of an investigation into the treatment, complications and the deaths of psychiatric patients at the Northern Cape Mental Health Hospital, as well as the Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Hospital. Now, the results, you already know there's been complications in deaths. The results in terms of the how and the what are really important to consider. Let's then get on the line with us, Prof. Mokoena, the Health Ombudsman. Appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. Right, let's start with this. Give us an overview in terms of the key high-level findings in terms of the investigations that were done.
Well, as you already mentioned, the key elements are that there were 4 patients that were referred for investigation, and 2 of them died. One of them had an operation but remains bedridden from complications. Now, the ones that died, I'll start with the one that's less complicated in terms of the story, is that a psychiatric patient, aged about 37 years, was at the Northern Cape Mental Hospital, and in July last year, he was found collapsed in his bed, and the attempts to resuscitate him failed, in part because of lack of equipment and or non-functioning of the equipment. I'll come back to the non-functioning of equipment shortly, and that he was hypothermic. In other words, he was cold, and so the post-mortem confirmed that he died from cold. And then the second patient who died was also a youngish man. He was at the mental hospital and then was referred to Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Hospital for what was thought to be a bowel obstruction. When he got to the to Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe Hospital, X-rays were done, and the abdominal X-rays showed that he had no abdominal obstruction, but instead it showed a multiple lobar pneumonia. Now, you may or may not be aware that one of the complications of exposure to cold is to catch pneumonia. So we believe that he too caught pneumonia because of this exposure to cold, extreme cold. Now the problem with this particular patient is that the doctors junior doctors who received him at Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Hospital, once they realized that he had no bowel obstruction that he was referred there to, therefore, they returned him. At least they prescribed that he be returned back to the mental hospital. But this did not happen. So he stayed 3 days at the surgical emergency part of Robert Sobukwe Hospital. But while he was there, nobody attended to his pneumonia, and indeed he deteriorated, as one may guess, because the pneumonia was not being treated, and he died. Now the third patient was also a mental hospital patient, was referred to Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Hospital because of hemorrhage into his brain. And this patient was properly and adequately treated for his intracranial hemorrhage, but he remains with a dense hemiplegia and is bedridden. The fourth patient is a patient that had hypothermia, in other words, was cold, and also a hypoglycemia, meaning that he had low blood sugar. He was referred to Robert Sobukwe Hospital, and then he was successfully treated there and returned back to the hospital. Now, I said I'm going to speak more about this exposure.
Yeah, just as you do that, just pause for a moment. Let me just remind the audience, we are chatting to the Health Ombudsman, and this is on the day when the Health Ombudsman releases investigations into the findings, into the treatment, complications, and the deaths of psychiatric patients in the Northern Cape Hospital, and another. I mean, there's in fact two, right? The Northern Cape as well as Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe Hospital. Of course, go ahead once again, Prof. Mokoena. In terms of now we know what happened. You can tell us the why. Yeah.
Now, the exposure that all these patients are exposed to, exposure to extreme cold winter, it was July last year, and it was very cold there. Now, the exposure came to pass because the electricity supply to the hospital was vandalized. The substation was vandalized, and the copper cables were stolen. And because the heating system and the ventilation heating system, or the HVAC system, depends on electrical power, it did not work. So the patients were exposed to extreme cold, and the hospital acquired or procured some pajamas and blankets, but these were of very flimsy material, and they did not actually protect the patients from the extreme cold. There were other issues that happened there in the hospital as a result of lack of electricity. But the one that is important or germane to our conversation now is that these people, they were exposed to the cold, and they suffered complications from the cold, but also the staff, both medical and nursing staff, they were derelict in the sense that they never paid sufficient attention. In some cases, no attention at all to the patient, and then resulting in death.
So what happens now? I mean, the actual investigation, I understand, was initiated by the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. So what happens now?
We've made some recommendations for remedial action. First of all, okay, the electricity has been restored, but what is needed is that the security must be beefed up so that the vandalism and the theft should not recur. That's number one. Number two is that the hospital must have sufficient alternative electricity generation. Currently, or at least during the period under question, they only had one diesel generator, which could not supply all the needs of the hospital. So it is our recommendation that the reserve must be better than what they have now. That's number one. Number two is that the resuscitation equipment, which I did not emphasize on, but the resuscitation equipment at the mental hospital is either non-functional or absent. But we recommended that these be purchased, and we hope that this will be done. It's not a major cost item.
Okay, all right.
And that people must be trained in using this equipment to resuscitate patients.
Okay, well, I tell you what, thank you for your time. Lots to consider and lots to reflect on. And again, I think about other issues like life esidimeni and others where, neglect comes in and we find that people lose their lives, and just so sadly so. So thank you for that report, and let's see what happens next around that. Professor Taule Mokoena, the Health Ombudsman, releasing the findings of an investigation into the treatment, complications and deaths of psychiatric patients at 2 hospitals in South Africa, even now. What do you make of that? Thank you for your time. We'll get your comments after this.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, I need to hear you. You're on the Pulse. You tell me. Magdalene in Bloemfontein, hello.
Hello, Ashraf. I'm so tired. I only came yesterday from America.
Okay,
So
and?
I'm going to give you something about this thing of relocation. You know what, ne? From what I saw and experienced from the American side, I'm going to say, me myself, I'm going to encourage my children that whatever opportunity that you will get to can relocate to America or a European country, you must grab it. Point is, for the fact that I don't want to see my children to be frustrated or depressed because of high escalation of criminal culture, which we experience in South Africa. Definitely, I'm going to encourage them to relocate from South Africa, not abandoning South Africa, but for the sake that they get a satisfactory life.
Okay, but I mean, in fact, what you're saying is you don't see a future for your children in this country, and if they have a choice, they should get out.
Due to criminal culture that we are experiencing in South Africa.
Okay. All right, got that, Magdalene. Thanks for putting that on the agenda. Mike in Newlands, go for it.
Yeah, hello, Ashraf. Thanks very much. I guess I'm going to bang the same old drum, but I'm so tired of listening to your callers come in and have a go at Trump and America. And I just want to once again just remind your listeners, that America for 18 years gave us billions of rands, saved I don't know how many black lives in the HIV program. And it just seems incredible that nobody phones in and says, you know what, I can't stand Trump and I hate America, but thank you for the money. We never had the courtesy, and I want to remind people about this. We've decided to turn our backs on America. We've become friends with Iran, Cuba, Russia, and all these other tin pot dictatorships.
But I don't think we decided to turn our backs on America. I think we made choices, yes, which may anger other countries. I hear what you're saying there. But turn back means like cut off relations. I don't think that's happened.
No, we've done that, Ashraf, and we've done that by looking for, saying who is America's allies, who are America's good friends, and then we've gone and sided up, with their enemies. We found out who's America's enemies, and we have made them our friends. We didn't say to America, look, tell you what, guys, we're going to leave you. We don't want to be anything to do with you. Stop sending us all your money, and we're going to go our own route. No, we carried on taking the money. We in fact were like a jilter. We were like having an affair with another country, hoping we wouldn't be found out by the one giving us the money. Let's not mess around here. I would urge Trump not to come to South Africa. He's not going to get any thanks for saving our lives. And on top of that, we have now got expropriation without compensation, and we have racism laws, which America will not tolerate. So I want to thank Trump for not coming out, and I want to say to the Americans, stop, please, sending us money. Let's see how China comes to the party. Let's see if they build companies here that build cars. We have pharmaceuticals coming here to make money, or we have other industry from China and Russia and Cuba. I can tell you right now, we're going to be bitterly disappointed, and I think we're making a big mistake turning our backs just on the industry, just on the buying power of America alone. We are turning our backs on that. It's going to cost us.
All right,
really.
Mike, you've made your point. As you've said it before. You've made your points. Thank you for that. That's Mike in Newlands. And again, two different views for different reasons, putting their point on the agenda. Now, you could also say the same as well. And there's been a comment. Did he say that Trump saved black lives regarding HIV? It's a bit unclear what was said there, right? Okay, Bonakele in Cape Town. Let's talk about Malema. Bonakele, hello. No, maybe we just lost Bonakele. Let's just see with keys. Right, let's see if we do have Klabirwa on the line. Klabirwa, go for it. Hello.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to the Department of Health, but I could not help just to take a swipe at Mike, the racist Mike, to be fair. That he always come here and parade USA and Trump as his hope. And I'm still wondering what is he doing in South Africa, in particular in Durban. What is he doing? Why can't he just allocate and then sleep with Trump and be an American and do what he wants to do with Americans? He says that he always must remind us, our viewers, about Americans and so on and so on. And was consistent with this, that the racist must leave. And the racist Mike must leave.
Okay, you've made your point. You see, again, we're getting different views on that. I mean, Mike is saying he's tired of listening to people who are defending the South African position against Trump, when, in fact, against the USA, we were willing to take their money. And that is true. We have taken their money. And then we have friends that are not friends of the USA. So what did we expect? I mean, in a nutshell, that's what he's saying. And he's saying, why then would we not do the honorable thing effectively and say, we don't want your money either? Can you have it both ways? Right, that's another. Let's get we should get Tefu. Tefu in Welcome. Go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm good indeed. Go for it. Yeah, your point?
No, I'm good, thanks. I just want to just a comment to Mike's remarks, ne? The previous caller, Mike.
Yeah.
There was 49 odd people that went to America. Doesn't he want to join them, perhaps? I think he would fit very nicely in the package of those people that went away. He seems not to be
But why would we make it a Mike show? What I'm trying to say, I know what he said. I mean, we've had many debates, and I've rebutted him so many times, by the way, when I think he's made some sweeping statements. But in a case like this, does he have a point about what he's saying? That we are critical of Trump and America, and we are still taking their money. I'm just putting that point, because that's what he's saying.
No, he doesn't have a point at all, and he seems not to be understanding the dynamics around the world. We do not choose who our friends are. America chose from the very get-go who our friends should or shouldn't be, and as we listened to the master turned the back around and decided, you will go to your own way. But all I wanted to say, additional to that, is that Trump is not going to be forever. Things will change in America. Of course, the 4 years of his rule is going of his presidency is going to be very tough for South Africa, but we'll always find a way to take care of the country. I'm sure, despite all the problems that we have, South Africa will still see Day of Light.
Okay,
if Mike
got that.
is not happy with that, I think he better, maybe he must just take his bags, and he's not contributing to solutions.
Well, I don't know about packing bags, but I hear you, Tefo. We're going to leave it at that. We're going to get on to news in a moment. Let me just say this. I mean, the interesting part that even Mike said is that, South Africa found out who America's enemies are and then befriended them, as if that's the choices we made. I mean, one can argue, Mike, is like, what about America's friends who could be the enemies of a whole lot of human rights abuses? Just think about it. I don't have to say too much. You can work that out. 5 o'clock, it's time for the news. Here's Greg Close.
Thank you, Ashraf. Your top stories at this hour. South African salaries hold steady, and Dalimpofu says Mkhunu's placement on leave is illegal. Good afternoon. With the news at 5 o'clock, I am Chanduko Ligege. Bank South Africa's latest data shows that South African salaries held steady in June following 3 months of moderation. The average nominal take-home pay was 17,310 rands in June 2025, a marginal decline of 0.1% in May. Despite this slight dip, salaries remain significantly higher than the previous year when the average was 15,514 rands. However, independent economist Alice Kruger says the broader economic outlook remains concerning.
The economic environment has deteriorated in recent months, and especially the levels of uncertainty in the economy has resulted in lower confidence and also a pause on investment decisions. This will be negative for economic activity in the second half of the year, and there's really a concern that it could have a negative impact on both employment and on earnings potential in the second half of the year.
Advocate Dalimpofu has argued that it was illegal for President Cyril Ramaphosa to have placed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave and appoint Professor Firoz Kachalia to act in his position. Ramaphosa announced Mchunu's special leave earlier this month in response to allegations made by KZ and Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi about corruption among members of the judiciary and public office holders. Mpofu is representing former President Jacob Zuma, who is the leader of the MK party in the Constitutional Court application brought by the MKP. He says while the Constitution allows for the President to appoint 2 ministers from outside the National Assembly, the clause does not make allowance for an acting minister.
This whole maneuver is about that. How do I save my friend and close political ally, give him a salary for the next 3 years, 5 years, God knows for how long, while he's doing nothing, but keeps the bodyguards, the drivers, and all those things, and the title. But at the same time, I have someone who must look after the police.
Meanwhile, counsel for the MK party advocate Anton Katz says there is no provision for an acting minister to be appointed to cabinet. He says Section 97 of the Constitution only allows the President to transfer a cabinet minister to another function.
So he says, well, I don't want to keep the minister here because it's not good for perception of policing in this country. I dismiss him. Next week, Justice Commissioner Madlanga comes up with a clean bill of health for the current minister or the previous minister of police. The President can appoint him the next day. What harm has happened? Nothing. That's how it works. There's no need for suspension. The president can appoint on one day, dismiss on the next day.
In other news, the case against 6 suspects accused of the murder of 18 people at Ngobozana village in Lusikisiki last year has resumed at the local high court. The state has applied for the submission of post-mortem reports on the deceased. The suspects did not object to the application. The results revealed that the victims died of multiple gunshot wounds from high-caliber weapons. On Monday, all the 6 suspects pleaded not guilty to all the charges they face. Angolan President João Lourenço has dismissed concerns raised by taxi drivers on rising petrol prices. Not only has this resulted in higher fares for urban Angolans who rely on the taxis, but it has also driven up the price of staple foods and other basics. Police say 5 people, including a police officer, have been killed and more than 1,000 have been arrested after demonstrations in the capital, Luanda. Recapping on the top story at this hour, Bank South Africa's latest data shows that South African salaries held steady in June following 3 months of moderation. The average nominal take-home pay was 17,310 rands in June 2025, a marginal decline of 0.1% in May. For SAFM News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
In sport, the Sawa Saskok and Federations form task team over Mackenzie's big funding cuts. And in the business of sport, we look at Cape Town City's big task to sway PSL DC after successful appeal. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Germiston has heavy traffic reported towards Elands Interchange due to a crime scene on the N12 West. And then the N12 westbound in Alberton also has a crime scene reported before the R59 Reading Interchange. And Greyston Drive eastbound in Sandton has delays towards the M1 highway. In KZN, the M7 westbound slow moving towards the Belleville Road exit. The N3 westbound has a stationary truck reported at Keyridge, and Otto Forlik Road southbound in New Germany is slow moving towards the M19. In Cape Town, Main Road northbound is where police incidents reported at St. James, so expect some queuing traffic. Stellenbosch Arterial Road in Belhar has a crash reported at Symphony Way, and Main Road in Rondebosch queuing at Belmont Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, let's get comments from you. Comments regarding Donald Trump. Not his doings and goings on, because we've done that so many times, but if he does not come to South Africa, what message would that be sending to our country, and what impact would it make for the G20 summit, and what does it do for South Africa as a country if, as Donald Trump has sort of intimated, that he may not, he didn't say he will not, he said he may give it a miss. Okay, that's one, but there's more. That report from the Health Ombud, really disturbing report around the findings into the complications on the deaths of psychiatric patients at two hospitals in Northern Cape. Terrible, terrible, horrible story indeed. That's the other. Then the one regarding the EFF councillor in the Cape, Cape Town, in fact, who was, well, he was asked to remove himself from the council. He didn't, and then the council minders came in and literally choked him to the point of unconsciousness. It really happened. We need to get their side of the story. I get it, maybe from the speaker, but as it stands, there's video evidence of that. And there's more. That conversation regarding stats and where South Africa's numbers are with the people, maybe white South Africans, 50,000 per year leaving this country over the last 20-odd years or so. And that conversation as well that we had regarding agriculture in our country and the 30% tariff from the USA, a fascinating one. In fact, all of that, including that one with Wandile Sitlobo, all of them, in fact, you could pick it up as a podcast because we have them all on the show. It's been tweeted out already, so you find it on social media, Twitter, but also go to the SFM website. You'll find them there under podcast and the heading of the National Pulse, all of that there. We'll chat to Pat Matlangu coming up just now regarding the Business to Brand Summit that's on Friday, in fact. But before that, here's another story that is I think it's going to freak you out, honestly, right? 3 people, one of them's a mother, they've been arrested after a viral video surfaced. And what did it do? It showed the mother not just using this drug-laced glass pipe, in the presence. In fact, this is what I said. I told my wife this. I said, let me tell you the story of this mother smoking this, whether you want to call it chick, I'm not too sure what the drugs are, but anyway, drug-laced pipe. And as the mother's doing so, she's doing it in front of a child, a 3-year-old child. And my wife was already shocked to death. She said, no, man. I said, well, I've got worse news for you. Not only did she smoke it in front of the child, according to that video evidence, she then appeared to light and hand over and get the child to smoke as well. Horrific story. I understand that has gone the legal route too, but let's find out more about it in terms of like understanding it and what do you do around this with Shahida Omar, who's the clinical director at the Teddy Bear Foundation. Shahida, appreciate your time on the National Pulse.
Thank you, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. I mean, you deal with so many stories and so many horrific stories. I mean, this is up there, isn't it? It is like almost unthinkable.
Well, it's not even unthinkable. It's inconceivable. It's an enigma. One cannot understand how a biological mother can subject her child to this gross form of violence and violation. It constitutes physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, and purposeful neglect. I mean, it ticks all the boxes, unfortunately, and it's absolutely shocking to see the valorization of that, normalizing this, putting it on video, and the story going viral. What messages have been sent out there to the communities out there? Glamorizing it, absolutely. And of course, as I say, the violation on this child's rights, if we look at Section 28 of the constitutional rights, the right to protection, the right to nutrition, the right to education, and I could go on ad infinitum. Unfortunately, this child has been subjected to the most gross form of violation, and one can see that there's lack of empathy, that this is a child and the power dynamic, a child that is powerless, helpless, hopeless, and who is supposedly to be under the care and protection of the primary caregiver, where the primary caregiver is subjecting this child to this form of violation and victimization.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, in terms of the video scene, you see the mother effectively taking puffs herself, and then the significant part, the boy watching, and then this boy of 3 years old being urged to light the pipe and then taking several puffs, which in fact the boy did, right? Now, I understand there's been 3 suspects. One of them, of course, the mother. They've been arrested based on the basis of what has happened. And my point to you, Shahida, is so the legal recourse will happen and let it take its course, right? But in terms of where you sit in understanding what triggers people to do this, I mean, what can you tell us?
So we need to look at it from a systemic perspective, a systemic lens. Because if we're looking at prevention, it has to look at the different tiers. We know we're dealing, if you look at the toxic trio speaks to domestic violence, intimate partner violence, substance abuse, where, of course, it's not a sound, sober, rational mind that would resort to this kind of conduct. And then, of course, there's also dysfunctional families, and there's, the intimate partner violence. So just looking at that, one can, and of course, not all mental illnesses result in children being violated in this way. However, just to look at poverty, unemployment, and many other challenges, whether we're dealing with psychosis, dealing with postpartum depression, because often mental illnesses are undetected and undiagnosed, and there's a stigma attached to mental health where people are afraid to actually reach out because of the humiliation, the shaming, the blaming, the naming, and as a result of that, we find that often children are murdered, as we know, if we look at the recent spate of killings that children have been subjected to. And these are things that have to be addressed. But when we talk about systemic, I'm also wanting to address the poverty, unemployment. And then if we look at intimate partner violence, where there's the revenge filicide, well, getting back at the partner, and the altruistic filicide, well, it's for the benefit of the child and to kill the child and oneself. So there are many risk factors that are contributing to the kind of behaviors that we are seeing.
So, I mean, in terms of those risk factors that are contributing on the one hand, but on the other, you've made the point about, violence and poverty, and maybe you didn't use the word apartheid, but certainly the impact of historical displacement and all those things that go with it, right? Now, would they be mitigating factors? Because why I'm asking you that is that someone may say, well, you see, that's what the person who's the guilty party may say in a case like this, to say, well, I'm a victim of these circumstances, so I can't even think straight.
Well, I think firstly, just looking at the legal processes and looking at the Children's Act and the Children's Court, if we're going to look at the statutory processes moving forward, the child has been removed, which is actually the right thing to have been done, because the child, it's been clearly demonstrated that this child is in need of care and that the child is at risk, as the video clearly demonstrated. So firstly, removing the child, yes, but it's also a 3-year-old. We need to understand that the 3-year-old is bonded with the primary attachment figure, which is the biological mother, and it can be very traumatic. And of course, we know separation anxiety can kick in. But of course, we have to look at what is in the best interest of the child. So the Children's Act speaks to promoting the best interest of the child, and this is where we're at. And ideally, what we look at, the Children's Act is also looking at preservation of the family. So if there is an opportunity for the mother to be rehabilitated, for her to receive psychosocial support, to be admitted into an institution where there is favorable prognosis and progress made, so and the child continue to receiving play therapy, because a 3-year-old has limited verbal vocabulary and capacity to process and understand this, to be actually placed in a setting where the child is contained, nurtured, all the rights of the child are certainly provided, but at the same time ensuring that both child receive therapy, mother receives therapy, with the long-term objective or goal is to see if there's a possibility of reunification. So providing reconstructive services and then looking at reunification. That would be first prize. However, if there isn't that opportunity, if the mother is obviously beyond help or will not be able to take care of a child responsibly, then the child would have to go into long-term care, alternative care. But again, also looking at how best to ensure that the child's rights are promoted and that the child is taken care of.
Okay. Now, I mean, lastly, of course, you can't pronounce on the outcome of the case. That's one thing. And in terms of what's going to happen in terms of their lives going forward. However, based upon your own work in this space, right? And you made the point about whether the mother herself can be rehabilitated, right? I mean, what's the likelihood of that actually happening? When you're faced with a scenario like this and you apply what you've seen and heard elsewhere, what's the likelihood of that family ever getting to a situation of normality?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, Ashraf. And I want to say just, from past experiences and past work on the ground with families in these kind of settings, unfortunately, it's not very promising. And then, what we realize is the person that suffers the most is the vulnerable, the child who is vulnerable, innocent, and has no control of what has happened. So it is a very challenging situation. You know, one is always trying to be hopeful and optimistic and trying to do the best to ensure that the child is protected and safeguarded and the child is nurtured, and that we turned that abuse into resilience and hope for the child. That's the best you can do.
And to end with, if we look at, again, case studies like these in similar communities, notwithstanding the reality of the South African landscape, right? What would be the best preventative scenario in this case? Not for this particular incident, but in general. People listen and say, how can we avoid this?
Well, certainly we're saying to the communities out there, you know what, step up. It's time that you all step up, that everybody gets out of that mind your own business syndrome, that every child is my child. And until we don't get that kind of responses, we're not going to be able to protect children. So everybody has to look out for warning signs, for any red flags, and understand that even reporting anonymously could spare the life of a child, could ensure the safety and protection of a child. So it's actually, if we want to prevent this, we've all got to join hands together, and we need to look out for children. If a child is walking unsupervised, a child is not dressed appropriately on a cold day, a child has not been going to school and is just left to his or her own vices, this should become the problem of everybody, faith-based organizations. And also, as I said, health screening in clinics is critical. The perinatal screening and the postpartum depression screening, but also ensuring that we take away the stigma from reaching out to mental health support structures.
Okay, that's where we leave it. Perhaps a national dialogue only into the issues of, children who are abused in this case here. Much appreciate your time, Shaheeda, Dr. Shaheeda Omar, who's a clinical director at the Teddy Bear Foundation. A terrible story. 3-year-old child with his mother. All this caught on video. The mother effectively sharing this drug-laced glass pipe and, effectively getting the youngster to scape with, if I can call it that. Can you get that scenario? We'll talk to Pat Matlango about the Business to Brand Summit after this.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Hear the rhythm, feel the heat at the Imbaula Music Festival, where music, culture and community come alive. Tune in to Seasons with KG Mwekezi and the soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay, coming to you live from the Pretoria Botanical Gardens from 10 a.m. on the 2nd of August 2025. Come and vibe to Sunel musician Calvin Momo, Amanda Black, Zingo Malo, Trompis and many more. More than music, share stories, spark change, and unite against gender-based violence. Grab your tickets at imbaula.co.za. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, I'll tell you what, away from, some of the issues that plague our country, we also have to be aspirational, and the aspiration helps. We think winning in all things we do, and the Business to Brand Summit, I think in many ways does just that, because my understanding is it's premised on the basis of you start a business, as many people do, sometimes very small ones, often to survive. But how do you turn that business from the business, like surviving, to an actual brand where people feel that business emotionally, they connect with it? Because when you do that, it becomes mainstream and it's part of your lives, and hopefully will turn a profit for you as well, big time. That, I would think, would be the essence of that and more that Pat Matlangu and others would talk about at the Business to Brand Summit, which happens, in fact, in Sandton on Friday. Pat, good to chat to you as always. Thank you for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and the listeners. Thank you so much for having me on the platform.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. On Friday, it's the big day.
So, I trust I've introduced it correctly in terms of the why, right?
Indeed. What we want people or entrepreneurs or business owners or even marketers, that are in the space of building and growing their businesses, we want them to start thinking more about the brand. The legendary Jeremy Sampson says the brand can be a number one asset for any business. If you look at the brand value of MTN, I think last I checked, it was 40 billion rands, just the brand alone, and that speaks to the power of building a strong brand.
So help us understand this for those that don't quite get it. What's the difference between the business and the brand?
In the main, the business, it's just your day-to-day transactional stuff. You're focusing more on the operational side of the business. And when you play in the domain of brand, you're now playing in the long-term game, building solid emotional connections around the brand, connecting with your customers, gaining their trust, making sure that they don't buy one time only, but they keep coming back and buying from your business. And we all know that the benefits of having a strong brand is that also you can even charge more for your brand. Apple knows this too well, even though their products are way more expensive than other brands, but people still buy them. There's actually an interesting case study that was actually last year in Italy, where the court found that Dior was overcharging, customers, saying a bag that takes them $57 to produce, they were selling it for over $2,700 US. But guess what? Even with this knowledge, customers still want the Dior bag because of the power of the Dior brand.
Well, there you are. Interesting. I just had a chat today, by the way, with Tsepo Motlana, not on air, but just about other things. And that's a good example, the founder of Tsepo Jeans. The brand is so strong. Even as I say it, I know it would create an emotional connection, right?
Absolutely. I absolutely love the Tsepo brand. Also with him, when he started, people were up in arms when he was selling his jeans for 800 rands. Then Meghan Markle came to South Africa and got a pair for herself in Archie. And the following day, the price went up to 2,800. 1,800. And South Africans said, we want Tsepo jeans.
Well, there you are. That's the story. So let's then talk about so specifics around this summit. What's the plan? It means who should attend, but more importantly, when they attend, what will they find there?
So who should attend? In the main, it's entrepreneurs or business owners, marketers, executives, people who are in the content creators, business leaders, and also people who are just in the communication space. So we have a hot lineup of speakers and topics. We are bringing in, the big guns in the industry. The likes of Greg Maloka, who we all know from a radio perspective and the brand, and from a brand perspective has built YFM, KFM to be where it is today. We have the likes of Makosa, the MD of Makosa will be there, so we've got a mix of panel discussions as well as presentations to unpack specific topics that speak to how you can grow and build your brand. And interestingly, you also have someone from the CIPC, who's going to talk about how IP, intellectual property, can be an asset for your brand. Interestingly, when we had a briefing with them this morning, I shared a case study of how Miles Kubega, who's also going to be a speaker, took Vuyo, the brand Vuyo, which was built by SAB as a commercial, and they invested millions of rands, but they didn't protect it. Then Miles started a restaurant brand out of that Vuyos and made a business out of it. But then SAB worked up later on and say, "Oh, this man is using our IP." But then Miles said, where's your IP? We don't own the IP. You didn't register it with the CIPC. So it's a very interesting case study, and that's why we're bringing in someone from the CIPC.
Okay, to protect that too. Yeah. All right. Give me a website, perhaps I can direct people to if they're keen on attending, or social media platform.
www.patonbrands.com. Patonbrands.com. You can purchase your ticket there. Tickets are still on sale. You can find out all the lineup, all the speakers, as well as the program. The program should be up as well.
Okay, so before I let you go, of course they can pay to attend, and let them attend, because that's fine. That I think it's worthwhile, absolutely. But in 30 seconds, someone like yourself who knows all about brands, I mean, you even entitle yourself Paton Brands, right? Give me a 30-second nugget as to how one can move from business to brand. Just one thing they can do.
The one thing that you need to do is you need to build your awareness. You need to be consistently out there. Your brand needs to be out there. It needs to be seen. Because remember, people cannot aspire to what they cannot see. So people won't want to choose your brand or over the other if they don't know it. So your job as a business owner is to make sure that you bring awareness to your brand. And there are various ways that you can do that. Like right now, as I'm on the radio, through a PR sort of channel, you are hearing about my story. So awareness.
Well, there you are. People cannot aspire to what they cannot see. I'll probably add to that, people cannot aspire to what they cannot feel as well. So, Pat, thanks for bringing that on the agenda. Pat Matlangu, best wishes for that event on Friday. Johannesburg Sandton Business to Brand Summit. I think you need to be able to attend. It will certainly grow your business from being just an entrepreneur living day by day. You could actually become this empire. Start now. Right, let's get the news headlines. Just go on 5:30.
Good afternoon. I am Chandruko Ligege, and these are your headlines. Parliament's Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interests says all members complied this year and there were no late disclosures in the 2025 register for members' interests. BankServe Africa's latest data shows that South African salaries held steady in June following 3 months of moderation. And Advocate Dalim Mpofu has argued that it was illegal for President Cyril Ramaphosa to have placed Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on special leave and appoint Professor Firoz Kachalia to act in his position. More on this at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Midrand, slow moving towards New Road. The N1 southbound is slow moving towards the N17 Soweto exit, and the R21 northbound in Kempton Park, a crash reported before the R23 Benoni exit. In KZN, the M7 eastbound queuing at the N2 highway, the M19 westbound in Westville, slow moving towards Dunkeld Road, and Chris Hani Road westbound, slow moving at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards Spine Road. The N1 outbound has heavy traffic reported towards the M5 Kuburg interchange, and Main Road southbound has heavy traffic through central Claremont. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
Right, to me, what are we going to start with?
Well, the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee President Barry Hendrick says that national federations have formed a strategic task team to engage Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie and his department after heavy funding cuts. Now, sports have been hit by budget cuts totaling to about 40 million rand this year, which have seen cuts in government funding of up to 60% for codes such as athletics and swimming, while SASCOC and few others receiving nothing. And SASCOC described the cuts as an unfolding financial crisis that will derail the upward trajectory of the South African teams and individual athletes. But for now, in terms of the business of sport.
The business of sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Well, Cape Town City could be facing a hard time in trying to prove why Marumo Gallants need to be docked points and return to the Betway Premiership. This is after their appeal for prosecution was granted. And just to get a full understanding of the case and just how much such a case would cost and why Cape Town City is fighting so hard to somehow remain in the Betway Premiership, we are joined by our sports finance guru, founder of Cash and Sport, Nqobile Ndlovu. Nqobile, always great chatting to you. Let's get straight into it. I mean, let's start off with how we found ourselves at this point.
Yeah, good afternoon to me and Ashraf and the listeners. Yeah, we found ourselves at this point, and it dates back almost a year to August 2024, when the registration of clubs happened within the league, and there was a player who plays for Marumo Gallants who had been registered post their move when they purchased the status of Swallows, hadn't been registered properly, and the clearance hadn't been granted for that player to play. Now, Cape Town City flagged the lack of registration or the fact that his clearance documents hadn't been registered properly, and the DC or the prosecutor for the PSL never did anything about it. But it's now come to bear now, and Cape Town City is essentially arguing that point to say, because that player played an entire season and he wasn't registered to play properly or he didn't have clearance, Marumo Gallants should be docked points for all of those games that he played because that's a sanction, and therefore they should avoid relegation. That's a simple explanation of how we got here.
Okay, so now that Cape Town City have won their appeal, then what happens next?
So what happens next is that the arbitrator has forced the PSL's disciplinary committee, Zola Matjavu, chair, to open an investigation and also sanction Marumo Gallants for the improper registration of the player. What this could mean is two things. According to the PSL's handbook on disciplinaries, if a player if an unregistered player plays, the club is both fined and there could also be docked points. Now, if they are docked points for the 26 games that he played, that could find Marumo Gallants falling down beneath Cape Town City on the table, and it would save Cape Town City from relegation. But that's the next process that comes up next.
So the player can also be fined?
Not the player, but the club that he plays for, because it's their responsibility to ensure that he's registered properly.
And I mean, I can only imagine how massive a case like this is financially. Are you able to give us an estimate, more or less, how much Cape Town City is spending for such a case?
Cape Town, in terms of how much they're spending, I'm not sure, because it would depend on the legal side. But in terms of their sponsors and how much they stand to lose, which is part of the main reason why they don't want to go down. Firstly, they stand to lose the 2 million rand grant from the PSL, which comes up to about 12, up to almost 20 million rand a year. And then they also stand to lose sponsorship income. Let's not forget, they have FNB as a frontier sponsor, somewhere in the region of 20 million rand. They also have other sponsors. In total, I think their sponsors are somewhere in the region of about 50 million rand annually. Sure. So that's a lot of money that they stand to lose, because those sponsors all have get-out clauses. The moment you're relegated, those sponsors can almost all walk away. And then also you stand to lose all of your premier players. They've lost a lot of players already who have already triggered their relegation clauses. So they stand to lose a lot in terms of money and players and assets.
Okay, then just before I let you go, then what are the chances of surviving the drop, and what does this mean for the start of the league?
Well, the chances of surviving, it depends on what the prosecutor does. But given the wording that says that the team must be sanctioned by a points deduction and a financial fine, it kind of looks like Marumo Gallants is in big trouble, and Cape Town City, it depends on how many points they docked. But even if that doesn't happen, even if Marumo Gallants aren't docked points and they don't get relegated by the DC, Cape Town City can still go to the courts and interdict the start of the league. In terms of the start of the league, I don't see that the start of the league will happen as planned, because this disciplinary process has to happen before the start of the league, and that's in a week's time. So I don't see how the league starts with this process already done.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how things unfold. Nqobile, always great chatting to you. Thank you very much for joining us. It is the founder of Cash and Sport, and just talking about that Cape Town City Marumo Gallants saga. How it's going to end, it'll be interesting. But as you heard from Nqobile, Cape Town City are on the verge of basically losing around 50 million rand of sponsorship. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. Ke nna Tumi Kgapele Modimo.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
We've all been looking at this saga from the outside looking in. Very clear that there are factions within the SAPS.
The biggest challenge that we have in the SAPS is the issue of leadership. You will recall that in 2008, specialized units were closed down without conducting what we call a work study, which will inform management the rationale behind the closure and why they need to move away from the area offices, specialized units, towards another direction that they have decided then. We have managed to have specialized units in child protection and family violence to be reopened fully.
Mpho Kwinana, Secretary General of the Independent Policing Union.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen, and nothing is off the agenda.
The Morning Brief.
Do you find that there are instances where there's a disproportionate representation of Basotho nationals in and among the suspects that are involved in some of these crimes? And are you picking that up as a trend and a pattern? And how exactly are you dealing with it?
It's not only Basotho nationals that are involved in crime. We have majority also South African, but within the illegal mining space, we find a lot of Basotho nationals that are involved because during arrest, they have the highest numbers, followed by other countries like Malawi or Mozambique or Zimbabwe that are involved in those. But we also have then, you'll recall we had a tavern shooting not so long ago in Olivenholt Bosch. And what was concerning is that those that were involved and those that were shot were all illegal Basotho nationals and so on.
Brigadier Athlenda Mate, as spokesperson of the SAPS.
Tulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
As always, we've got Jimmy Moya hosting the SAFM Market Update. Jimmy, good to connect with you as well on what you call Wacky Wednesday, South Africa-US trade deal deadline, something we touched on earlier. You have a view on that too.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Pretty much the majority of today's show is going to be focused on tariffs and deals. We're going to examine the US trade deal. We're going to look at some of the commitments, the concessions, the mechanics behind that, what's been going on. There's been different conversations coming out of the DTIC. We're going to take a look at everything that we can from a trade deal perspective, understanding that, of course, that deadline is effectively less than 48 hours away depending on which time zones you're looking at. We're also going to take a look at some other tariffs related to local markets. We're going to look at RCL's latest bid to have a tariff imposed on peanut butter and the impact that's having on the local manufacturing space. RCL Foods is a local manufacturer of peanut butter. They import their peanuts, make them peanut butter here, but there are also other manufacturers in the market that import finished peanut butter. So we're going to look at that from RCL's perspective, but we're also going to speak to the International Trade and Administration Commission. ITAC is the body responsible for regulating the tariffs, and that's where the application has gone to. So we're going to have a two-part conversation there, and then we're going to take a look at the impact of these tariffs on countries' decisions to move towards self-reliance. We're going to have that conversation with the team at Orbis, that's offshore partner for Alan Gray. We're looking at how the move towards self-reliance is now affecting global investing and the investing decisions that long-term investors are making. And then we're going to wrap up the show with a executive lounge conversation. We're going to speak to the country manager of Cotton On South Africa. We're going to get a sense of what she gets up to when she's not running the Cotton On business locally and what she enjoys doing most. But before we get to all of those conversations, the markets have, again, let me down, at least on this part of the South African rand. The rand's currently at 17 Rand 96 against the US dollar, just shy of 18 Rand. 20 Rand 61 against the euro, 23.86 against the British pound, 11.59 against the Australian dollar. If we look at international markets, indice markets, the Asian markets were a bit of a mixed bag. The Hang Seng down 1.3%. The ASX in Sydney, on the other hand, up almost 0.2%. European markets were slightly positive, with the FTSE finishing slightly flat, about a basis point in the red there. But the CAC 40 up about 0.33%. Nasdaq's up 1/3, and the S&P is up about 0.1%. Local markets, financials led the charge, 0.7% gains there. Industrials down 0.2%, and resources almost flat, 6 basis points to the red, but the all share up 0.15 nevertheless, and the top 40 up 0.08%. Quick look at commodities. The gold price back below $3,300 a fine ounce at $3,293 at the moment. The platinum price at $1,379, and palladium at 1,268. So the precious metals side of things giving back some ground there. But if we look at Brent crude, that has gone above $70 a barrel. We're at $72 odd a barrel at the moment. And we still have an interest rate decision coming out of the United States later. So I'm going to dig into that in a little while with David Shapiro of Sasfin Wealth. And we're going to see if we can try and make sense of what the FOMC decision might look like and how that might influence our own rates decision expected tomorrow. But of course, these conversations come up just after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Well, you enjoy your show. Well, enjoy would be the operative word, maybe. 6 to 7, Jimmy Muyaha, followed by sport from 7 to 8. What it does mean is we have a chance to talk to you, in fact, and we'll do that in a moment because, yeah, you're on the pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
You are listening to SFM Radio this Mandela Month.
It is in your hands now.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so let's hear from you. I'm going to pick out some of your comments first up. And there are many, interestingly, many about Donald Trump, simply on the basis of the fact that he's suggested that he may not be coming to South Africa for the G20 summit. And that alone is sparked of a response.
Good day. I want to comment on Trump not coming to the summit in South Africa. I think that is a step in the right direction. The world needs to move to a position where things can happen without the US, because you can see with his tariff wars and all those things that manipulated the stock prices, affected the world economy just because of the decision of one man. So now the world need to find solutions that people can survive with or without, because we don't know why he's after South Africa. We don't know what he wants. We know that he's creating stories about deaths and killings and all genocide things, but we want a true solution for us as South Africans. The Seja from Polokwane. Thank you.
Okay, you've certainly put, you've made your point very, very clear. There's more, and there's a lot more on Donald Trump. I mean, who feels that him not coming to South Africa would be a major letdown for South Africa?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. About Donald Trump, I think the damage is already done, which is irreparable. The man has reached a point of no return. There's nothing that will convince him to change his mind about South Africa. So all that we can do now is to tell him to keep his America, then we will keep our South Africa. The horses already bolted. There's nothing that we can do anymore. Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machaba from Letswat.
Okay, Peter, they keep your America. I've heard that before. Okay. Really? The horses bolted? Maybe you may be right about that. And there's more.
After pulling the stunt that he did in the White House, it became very clear that Trump was not going to come to South Africa. Maybe he think Cyril Ramaphosa will reciprocate and embarrass him here. Maybe it's that fear. But I just don't think that he has any respect for South Africans. Donald Trump was never going to come to South Africa, and he will never set foot here. Speaker, Peter, my respect.
You see, I'm not too worried about the respect and the no respect. I mean, that's been discussed before. And the White House, I mean, he pronounced about different countries every single day and the outrageous demands as well, or pronouncements. I think all I'm asking, purely from a practical business position, keeping in mind South Africa itself as a country is saying they want to do business with America big time. They want to, right? What harm does him not coming here, will that harm South Africa? And in what way will he do so?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. For me, if Donald Trump is not coming to South Africa, it's a sign and a breath of fresh air. Actually, the man himself, actually, they should have just forgotten even to go and negotiate about these tariffs. Let him stay with these tariffs. He is afraid for what he has done and what he did. He is still saying about us. Hence, he's afraid to come to our country. Breathe of fresh air. For Dali Mpofu, you are downgrading yourself, my man.
Okay. Do you really think he's afraid to come to our country? Got that. There's more. In fact, talking about Dali Mpofu, here's one.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf. Lennon Khwedi. Ashraf, Dali Mpofu today, actually, he has embarrassed himself. And he keeps on contradicting himself in front of the judges. When they were asking him questions for clarity, he could not clarify straight to the point. He was busy jumping and doing all these sort of things, bringing all these allegations. They ended up stopping him from wasting time. You know, this issue of him thinking that he's an intellectual is catching up with him now.
Okay. Let me not comment about that, but accepting to say your last line. Intellectual is catching up with him. Interesting. Here's one regarding the tick-smoking parent who made the video. Surely there's culpability there too. Obviously, I mean, they're all sitting together, aren't they? In fact, I get the sense they were gloating about it.
Good afternoon, SFM. It's Mandla here in Buhle Park. As much as Mike is saying that why would we accept money from America while we don't like Trump? Same applies to him. Why would he like to stay in South Africa whilst he always criticizes its policies and criticizes its leaders? Why can't he leave also? After all, wasn't it Nelson Mandela who said one of the mistakes that analysts make is that their enemies should be our enemies? We won't worship Trump just because he gives us bread. Mandla in Buhle Park.
Mandla, I think your sense is really interesting in terms of what you say. So yeah, a lot of it I agree with you.
Hi, Ashraf. Just to comment on Mark. You're wrong on so many levels technically. South Africa is friends with these countries because the ANC became friends with these countries back during the days of apartheid, and they became friends with them because they were helping them to fight against the apartheid government, not because the ANC was at all at war with America or Donald Trump or anything back in the 70s, 80s, and whatever. So please, let's get that straight.
Well, I mean, you're 100% right, but I mean, let's say this without making it the Mark show. I mean, Mike show, he knows that. I mean, they choose to forget that completely. Majosi and Alex, go for it. Majosi, hi.
I'm good, and you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Right. What's your point?
I wanted to comment about Donald Trump that we, as a citizen, we shouldn't be following America, Ashraf. The reason being, they are the ones who need us more we've got the minerals, and we have some things we need from them, but we can get them from other parts of the world. But bowing to Donald Trump, it's selling South Africa cheap, which I don't think we don't have options to market our minerals. We do have a lot of options. Going to the east or going to the north or south, it's somewhere where we can go, not America, because America wants to rule the world. It will fall on to be the puppet of America. That's my take, Ashraf. Thank you
Okay,
very
thanks for that, Majosi. You're saying they want to rule the world. In fact, rule the world in many ways. I need to choose the words carefully, but they do rule the world in many ways in terms of their influence. Just think about what I'm saying. Do think about it. Right, here's another.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm not sure why are you going to a length to try to justify and qualify the statements that are made by the racist Mike from Newlands. I'm not sure why do you go to that length, because South Africa should not succumb to the fact that America wants to punish South Africans on the basis of who are the friends of South Africa. We've been there even before apartheid. America never supported the struggle against apartheid. Therefore, Mike must just go to be a refugee at the USA.
Okay, he's obviously listening and he will form his opinion. Imagine me being accused of effectively supporting, backing Mike. Interesting one.
Ashraf, somebody that doesn't want to be here is completely fine to live. Yeah, this country will live with the people who are indigenous here. But it's like all those people, they want to go. They want to go. Let them be, and then now, South Africa it will live with some people that deserve this place. Thank you.
You see, it's not a case of all those people who want to go. I mean, there are people, in fact, there are also black people who don't want to live here for whatever reason. So it's not a case of like indigenous or not. There are people who want to go and others who want to stay, but there are people who do feel, as has been suggested with the Mike story, that they are in love in many ways with the leader of another country, as if that's their country or their president, without looking at anything wrong they do, which is rather strange. Think about their track record.
Afternoon, Ashraf. The caller Mike, at the risk of making the show about Mike, it is an unfair statement that Americans gave us money and saved thousands of black lives against HIV. Is HIV a disease of the black?
Yeah, you. I think, just to be clear, I'm not going to speak for Mike, but I think what some may debate is the issue of the antiretrovirals and the support that was given in that way. That's the point. That's why there is risk right now. With all that being pulled, there's definitely risk, and we've spoken about it with health experts and the issues that are coming up around that now.
Good afternoon, SAFM. I would like to say that President Trump and the USA are not giving us any sleepless night, because we have the white people in our backyards. The white people, European descendants, are here in a SADC region. Most of the countries in this region are concentrated with the white people from Europe, or that were originally from Europe. So there's no way America can cut us off. If they cut us off, they are not only cutting us, the black people, they are also cutting the white people as well. So there's no way they can able to influence something that will also impact on their skin color. I thank you. That is Nkululeko Shongwe from Echozini, KZN.
Well, you have an interesting logic, and I wonder whether others would concur with that sort of logic. By the way, talking about logic, interesting. I'm picking out a tweet from James Stein. I hope I've got it right. Saying, Ashraf, it's a pity that you and the SFM did not try to establish the facts before publishing articles, podcasts like this, referring to the EFF in Parliament in the Cape Town City Council today, right? And then saying, you'll notice how the EFF councillor is named 3 times for disrupting the meeting. In fact, that was. Did you listen to the conversation? In fact, the representative from the Good Party said so, that he was asked to stop. So the point is not that. The point is, to what level do you then not just physically manhandle, but actually, is it okay to choke a person? That's what we're talking about. Nobody's saying that he was right. Nobody ever said that he was right. But can you choke someone to the point of unconsciousness?
Hi, Ashraf. I think they should bring back the death penalty for such circumstances.
Okay. Well, that's been discussed.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm laughing myself, Ashraf. The caller who said she just came from America. Every time when she's on the radio, she's bombarding foreign nationals. Every time. So I'm very surprised. Now she's advocating for his or her kids, I don't know, whatever, to go to America, to take the opportunity of Americans there. But whenever she's on the radio, she's always crying about foreigners. Thanks.
I refer to Magdalene. I tell you what, audience, never underestimate the level of conversation of you, the audience, because you really are. That's why we always say you move the National Pulse daily and you pick up issues that we have. I can't play others. I'd love to, just can't. Not enough time, unfortunately. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget that whatever we've spoken about, they're all up as podcasts as well. So go to sfm.coza. You'll find it. sfm.coza, podcast, the National Pulse. You'll find them all there, but also they tweet it out. So if you go to our Twitter account on SAFM, you will find it right away. Can we do this again tomorrow? I'm sure we will, right? It's 6 o'clock, time for the news.
Thank you, Ashraf. Your top stories at this hour. Cape Town EFF councillor opens a case of assault, and Dalimpofu says Mkunu's placement on leave is illegal. Good evening. With the news at 6 o'clock, I am Chandruko Ligege. EFF councillor in the City of Cape Town Council, Mzubanzi Dambuza, has opened a criminal case against a security official who allegedly choked him to the point of unconsciousness. Good Party councillor Roscoe Palm says the incident happened when the Speaker of the City of Cape Town Council, Felicity Purchase, failed to maintain order in the council chamber. Dambuza says the Speaker asked him to leave the chamber after he raised concerns about being ridiculed by DA councillors. He says he refused to leave.
First, when he started choking me, I said, "You are choking me, you are killing me." He did not listen to that. Then he gets me on my back. And then he starts continuing choking me. And you could see there's a rage with this guy. Like, he does not care as to what must happen with me. And none of the officers are stopping him.